Hello, welcome to an episode of Geeked Out.
Specifically Otome O'clock.
Let's go.
We are finishing up the extended demo of Made Marion.
Mm-hmm.
She's a maid guy.
And we'll see where we go from there.
We had a bit of a late start because technology was like, but what if I didn't work?
Yeah, which is why we didn't have the Otome O'clock sort of cut-in thing.
I have no clue why I decided let's stop functioning right before the show started.
It's because it's OBS, and OBS apparently doesn't like Otome games.
How rude. Am I balanced with you, Megan?
Are we balanced? Are we harmonious? Are we in sync?
I don't know. That's okay, Willow. We're
You're
also
not in
late.
sync.
You're on time. You're on time for us being here.
You're not-
So you're on time.
You are not in sync. You are, in fact, the Backstreet Boys.
Tell me why.
Ain't nothing but a heartache. Tell me why ain't nothing but a mistake. Fucking hate the Backstreet Boys, which is hilarious because I like K-pop. And the Backstreet Boys are basically K-pop, but American.
It's white boy K-pop.
Yeah, but I mean, come on. At the end of the day, it's the difference between the Ring and Ringu. I mean, which is better?
Yeah, and also K-pop, the boys are just
It's very
prettier.
different. It is very different.
Okay, this is like, meow. Oh, all right, that's enough out of my old ass. We're playing video games. So we've decided that Megan, you're doing the interior dialogue
I'm
of
doing
Marion.
the interior dialogue and the interior decorating.
Oh my. Game. There we go. So last we left off, we did the playthrough through Sherwood Forest. Now, all right, first, off the top, Made Marion. What the fuck is this game? What are we doing? Why do we do it?
Made Marion is a game where you play as Made Marion of Robin Hood fame. And you sort of, you get to date some of the more known characters. You can date Robin Hood, you can date Little John, Will Scarlet, the Sheriff of Nottingham.
The Sheriff Nottingham. Mm.
We don't have those options turned on, Ashlee. There's a bard you can date. She's the only girl you can date. Basically, the Sherwood route is mostly characters from the stories, but the Nottingham route is mostly
the Sherwood route focuses on Robin Hood and his band of merry men, the outlaws and the thieves.
Yeah.
Nottingham is the Sheriff of Nottingham. Guy might have been a character in the Robin Hood folklore.
I think Guy's at least
Guy of
based...
Gisborne? Yeah, that's a real guy.
Well, his name isn't Guy of Gisborne, but his name is Guy. So far as we know,
He's the guy. Hey.
He's the guy.
he's the guy.
Forget about it.
But then there's two other characters who are just made whole cloth for the story. Mesa,
The maid guys.
who is a sort of seer type person from a country called Niberia, and the bard whose name I forget, who's the only girl you can smooch.
Who might be made up.
She is made up.
There's a lot of maid in this game.
Yes.
Sir, you need to calm the fuck down. We've barely started. Willow, getting contentious in chat. Instinct is better than Backstreet anyway. I don't have a dog in this race. I hate both of them equally.
Yeah,
What about 98 Degrees?
All boy bands suck.
Okay, Instinct
But
and
they all-
Backstreet
but
Boys
here's-
were put
here's the-
together.
here's the
98
thing.
Degrees was just, we're just hot and pouting.
Here's the thing, though. They all suck in one direction.
I'm gonna fucking revoke your microphone privileges. I'm gonna put you back in your cage.
I don't know, Adam, are you made of physical material that can be put in a cage?
Sometimes.
Okay, so it's sort of like a...
Archers? I know, Willow said archers. Like, well, archery does play a role in the Robin Hood folktale.
Robin Hood was a very good archer, apparently.
Allegedly.
Shooting,
Allegedly.
yeah.
According to
shooting
legend.
an arrow, splitting an arrow on a bullseye.
Which is apparently easier to do with modern arrows than it is with old-timey wood arrows.
Which just makes him even more of a badass.
Yes, because modern arrows are hollow.
But Megan, who's the developer of this game?
Velvet Cupcake Games.
And though we're doing it live now, Velvet Cupcake Games, they do have a Blue Sky. They are on YouTube
And a
as
Tumblr.
well. And a Tumblr. So next week, hopefully when Ashley's behaving and it gets up on time like it's supposed to be, all the details, all their links. If you're interested in this game, go fucking check them out on Steam. Check them out on Itch.io, whatever your preferred platform.
And
show them love. They're like a micro indie studio. They're so
they're
so
one
tiny.
person who hired a couple other people.
They are a small cupcake, and we need to protect small cupcake.
And they post updates every week. Not like updates to the game, but they post like what they're doing every week. They have a very consistent dev blog. So the two routes that are fully out currently are Robin's route and Will's route. John's route is starting to be written. You can buy the game in early access, but it is coming out route by route because the main developer has long COVID and can only do so much.
Oh my goodness, I didn't even realize that. Willow, in chat, technically not a boy band, but Archers is my favorite chosen boy band. Dude, that make, oh my god, now I'm thinking of the Mary Band. As a boy, like a fucking boy band in the woods.
They kind of were.
They're like a fae boy band in this game.
Adam has already put in my mind Made Marion, or like the Robin Hood story, but as like mafia people.
Yeah, as in like 1930s gangsters. Yeah.
And it's slowly been coagulating into like something.
Oh, we need to vamp for more time while I finish this last slice of pizza.
So, in my idea, the Sheriff of Nottingham and Prince John would be dirty cops.
Of course.
Of course.
Robin
Well,
Hood.
they kind of already are.
Well, not in this game. Not when you can romance him. He's not a dirty cop. But in every other thing. And then Robin Hood and his merry men, obviously thieves, stealing from the rich, giving to the poor. We know how this story goes. Marion, daughter of a mob boss. What flavor of mob boss? I don't know.
Sure. They're criminals, but they give back to the community.
Yeah, they give back to the community.
They offer them protection.
Yeah. I haven't decided if I'm gonna go. Well, I think it might be a rumor in the story that Robin is actually like the son of a senator or something. In the story that I'm coagulating in my brain parts.
Prince John, I'm gonna give you one more for your confused. That was my
Attempt?
yeah.
That wasn't the worst attempt I've heard.
Well, protection.
Protection.
From what?
I'm gonna make them an offer.
However, I do want Friar Tuck. I want him to be a Catholic priest, though. Like an Irish Catholic priest.
But he's an Irish Catholic priest that beats ass.
Yeah, he's the priest from Hot
Like they'll
Fuzz.
give him like the scepter, the
His
big
father
old.
Twitcham.
No.
No.
No. Ashley. He's the priest from Hot Fuzz.
Buffering.
Do you remember the movie Hot Fuzz?
I remember the movie Hot Fuzz. I don't remember the priest. I remember the
was
guy
like
that
a-
couldn't talk too good and had a sea mine in his fucking barn.
No, in the movie Hot Fuzz, when the town council was attacking everyone.
Yeah. Was he the priest with two guns?
Yeah, he was the priest with two guns.
I was going to say he was the priest from Dead Alive.
Well, I would just like to think of Friar Tuck, like those like the big ass sticks they used to have in the old and medieval times, but he just brains people with it.
Don't worry, they still have a modern day. They're
It's a
called
shillelagh.
I know it's not a scepter. It's like a gigantic scepter.
oh my god, I know what it's
Sepulchre.
called because I looked at.
Sepulchre is
No.
a
No,
type
that's
of
not
tomb.
right. That's not right.
I looked up what it was because I wanted to make.
The Sepultura?
No,
No, that's a band.
I wanted to make a medieval inspired cleric costume where her is it a mace or a mace is the one where you have a chain on it, right? Adam.
No, that's a morning star. A mace is
Holy staff?
it's like a club, but it's a ball on a stick.
Yeah.
Monstrance?
But well, I guess a morning star is a mace, but if you're talking about the ball on a chain on a stick,
Yes.
that's a morning star mace.
Yes.
Alright,
A morning star mace, but it's that.
What do we think of monstrance or ostensorium? That's
It's
what.
neither of those things.
Okay.
I've also heard it referred to as a flail.
I
for
would
those of
also
you,
like the universe to know that I typed into Google Holy Catholic Stick to see what would come up. Monstrance, also known as an ostensorium or ostensori, is a vessel used
It's
in
a sensor.
a sensor is on a chain. That's like a flail. Like you whip that around.
That's what I was imagining you were saying. The sensor where you go, hey, no,
I would have said
No.
sensor. I'm
Yeah,
talking about they had a giant stick. I thought.
Listen, hold on. Twitch has enough sensors as it is.
Censor this, censor that. See, I was thinking like this, like a holy staff, like a giant Catholic stick with some sort of Catholic
Oh, you were
icon.
thinking about the priesty staffy thing.
Yeah,
The
to
priesty,
beat
the
people with.
priesty staffy thing.
Yeah, also known as the Holy Catholic Stick.
Actually, I
Just
was
plus
talking
one
about
I
this
just,
guy.
It was 1d4 radiant damage.
we're getting it. Are there any Catholics in chat, by the way, who can help them out?
All right, so we have yet to start this game.
Well, technically, since we're loading a save.
All right, we're in.
And we're in. It's you.
Okay. Are you all right, milady? Shall we sit for a moment?
I shook my head. No, I don't want to make Mesa worry.
Very well. Please do let me support you.
Also, I don't know if I'm pronouncing any of these names correctly. Joffrey's name could be Jeffrey for all I know.
We can call him Jeffy.
I took his
Crawford.
proffered arm, feeling at ease due to his bearing and manner. In the aftermath of the fight and the smoke, there were confused civilians and busy guards hustling around in every direction. This man served as an oasis of cool assurance.
All right, before we go any further, some backstory because we're in Median race. Like, we don't... If you're just checking in, you don't know what the fuck's going on. This is Made Marion. She's under a spell, a glamour, if you will. So she doesn't look like herself, so people aren't like, hey, that's the fucking princess. She's kind of
no,
missing.
Not princess, just like a highborn lady.
Like something aristocrat, something.
A noble woman.
Yeah. And she's supposed to marry the Prince of Nottingham. And
No.
she is... not the prince, the sheriff of Nottingham.
Lord Joffrey of Woodthorpe, Sheriff of Nottingham.
She's supposed to marry him, but she didn't want to because she's not about that arranged marriage life. So she said, fuck that, I'm out. Met with this other person who put the glamour on her. Now she's out in town, just
That
kind
would
of
be
like
Mesa.
hanging out. Mesa. And then
So Mesa was
she's
thinking.
in town. She ends up bumping into Nottingham because, of course. But he doesn't know that's the person he's supposed to marry. But there's shenanigans and fuckery happening in town, and people are trying to kill other people. And she manages to stop an assassination attempt. And then
With a pan.
Yeah, with a pan. And then at one point, smoke bombs were introduced.
Because somebody was trying to, like, somebody was attacking Mason. Marion tried to step in, and then Mesa was like, ah!
And Mesa was like, Ninja Vanish! And then they threw like a bunch of smoke bombs.
Yeah.
And then everyone's like, what the fuck? And this is in the middle of the town square. So people are trying to sell their fucking cookware. And now there's smoke bombs going off and people are getting stabbed. So this is where we are. All right. Megan.
I finished saying what I was going to say.
Okay.
I had dreamed of this once, of being escorted by a kind gentleman through the streets of London during my late introduction to high society.
And this fancy man over here is Guy, who's just magically appeared and is super polite.
He's very polite. He's imagine him with a French accent, I believe is the accent he's supposed to have.
We're gonna see what accents we devolve into by the end of the night.
My father's marriage plans for me had
Accidental
ensured that would never happen, so this small taste of that life was rather nice.
What brings you to Nottingham, my lady?
I'm looking for a Lady Chamberlain position. What brings a chevalier all the way to Nottingham?
A chevalier. It's like mom saying mozzarella. Mozzarella. I'm like, motherfucking stop.
Listen,
Oh,
it's
you
the
must
one
stop.
French word I know.
Mozzarella. Like, nobody says it like that.
Chevalier.
Nobody says it like that. Italians don't say
Chevalier.
it. Literally no one.
Crown business. I fear I can't say much.
Really? I didn't know the Crown was sending British kingsmen to Central Avalon. Okay, British in this context.
We got a link. Kingsmen, special agents of the crown who pledge fealty directly to the king rather than a lord. They carry royal authority with them and are not dispatched lightly. In other words, Guy Lalonde is, or purports to be, far more than a simple chevalier.
Okay,
There's
so
a movie called Kingsman you should watch. It'll clear it right up.
No, it won't.
No, it won't.
so British in this context, in like medieval times, before Britain was Britain, the British kingdom was France. Then things happened. In this context, think of British as French. I know it's confusing.
So, France wasn't France yet and Britain wasn't Britain yet, so they call them British?
Yes.
Was British maybe another term for, like, a royal house?
No, I don't think so.
So is British
It's
supposed
all
to
right.
be a group of
Apparently,
people?
ethnicity is fluid now.
No,
so
that
it's
I
fine.
need to stand on business, and we need to research the history of fucking names, because I want to know why it's British. We're answering the hard-hitting questions here on Otome O'clock. For you. While Megan's looking that up, I'll read. He favored my skepticism with a mild smile. It's been a bit strange after the war, you know, although that sharp mind should serve you well as a Lady Chamberlain. Was it a coincidence, or had he figured out how to flatter me that easily? Most men started with physical beauty. Even Mesa had done so. I had a feeling this man was just as sharp as he suggested I was. A few moments later, he spoke up again. By the by, what were you planning to do to that disagreeable gentleman when you charged him? Ah, you saw that. I was hoping to knock him off balance and perhaps get the guard to take some action. I didn't anticipate the smoke. Nor did any of us. Did you see where it came from? I knew exactly where it had come from, but I wasn't about to betray my host. No, but it was quite a shock when I breathed it in. I understand some of those strange devices are being smuggled in from Nibiru. They don't all make smoke. Some of them emit blinding light, while others can set things ablaze. A rather unfortunate consequence of the war. I think they're talking about fireworks and explosives in general.
Probably. I do not have a specific definition.
Damn it!
But I do know that before Britain was Britain, it was Avalon.
Which is probably where they got the Avalon from.
Well, it is where they got abolitionists.
You're right. I should. Your microphone privileges have been revoked.
Thank you.
Albion. Albalon? I don't know. Check the devlog on Tumblr. Velvet Cupcake Games. They'll tell you. Ask her. Let's make it her problem.
AI. Oh, Willow's got us. AI over you +4. The language spoken by the Norman conquerors of England in 1066 was a variety of Old French, and it became known as Anglo-Norman after it developed into a distinct dialect in Britain. Thank you, Willow. Did you read your line? Line?
Yes? It seemed I had a lot to learn about the consequences of the conflict. I'd only thought about how it affected Glastonbury, but Nottingham was in a far more complicated situation.
Still, that was courageous of you. A brave woman who thinks for herself is to be valued and appreciated.
More flattery, though, again, of the type I enjoyed. Thank you. We strolled on in companionable silence, punctuated by the occasional small talk until we were nearly to the North Gate.
Velvet Cupcake has busted out the fucking thesaurus and the dictionary for this bitch.
The SATs ain't got shit on her.
Exactly. So there's going to be a fucking test at the end of the show.
We're gonna fail the test. Mesa wasn't difficult to spot from a distance, pacing and twisting their hands together while their purple robes fluttered behind them. The Chevalier slowed down and reluctantly released his arm. He'd been a pleasant companion, although our conversation had been insubstantial. I was finding it rather enjoyable to meet folk on my own terms instead of as Lady Glastonbury, and something about this mysterious Chevalier made me want to pry beneath his placid surface.
Pry, you say?
For now, though, there was nothing for it. Also, that is a fleur-de-lis on his belt.
Very nice.
Many thanks for your time and assistance, Sir Guy.
A little curtsy.
I curtsied, an act I'd been performing my whole life. It felt awkward in comparison to Guy's effortless grace.
You're quite welcome and well met. I have a feeling we'll meet again. There are whispers on the wind that a rather substantial Lady Chamberlain position will be opening up in Nottingham soon.
He gave me a spare yet gorgeously executed half-bow and went on his way. A Lady Chamberlain position he couldn't mean. No, that would be ridiculous. I shook my head and hurried over to relieve Mesa of their worries. God, they are so pretty.
Oh dear, you look a fright.
That was your line. Mesa and Marion, my brain got confused.
That's
Mesa ran their hands over my face in concern, heedless of the judgmental looks we were getting from people in line at the gate. I was getting used to their habit of overly familiar contact, but I gently took their wrists and lowered their arms as I replied. I'll be fine. I'm sorry I didn't trust that you could take care of yourself.
Oh, well, perhaps it would have been better if I'd let you intervene. Let's go back home and we'll talk.
Mesa was understandably worried about their decision to use their smoke weapon that afternoon. Since they'd also used one to rescue me from Theo, we agreed that it was likely Mesa would be singled out for questioning over my disappearance. We decided to lie low for a few days to avoid being confronted in town. It was nice to spend some time in peace. Mesa gave me access to their library, about half of which was written in Iberian, but the other half featured some excellent works on Avalon history and science. When we weren't reading, Mesa regaled me with tales of the goings-on in Nottingham over the past few years. It certainly was a mess of factions and conflicts. By the third peaceful day, we began to wonder if perhaps Mesa wasn't being suspected after all. Maybe Lord Joffrey had read the note I'd left in my inn-room and decided to simply call the entire search off. We could only hope. That evening, Mesa approached me, a deck of cards in hand.
Would you like me to do a reading for you? It's a clear night with a full moon. And as fascinating as I am, I'm sure you're feeling restless, holed up here with only me for company.
Nonsense, you're a delight, but I would like to see what your stars have to say about my next move. Mesa sat me down at their dining table and took out the cards with a flourish.
Okay, hopefully this fortune-telling session goes a lot better than the first time we had a fortune-telling session in this series. Where he got stabbed in the hand and yeeted into another world.
Oh yeah, lost in limbo. They snuffed out their oil lamp, and I noticed the table had been placed so that moonbeams shone directly through the window onto its surface. Mesa cut the deck, had me pick 3 cards, and laid them face up on the table. To my surprise, the cards' faces showed nothing but the same pattern with arcane writing on it.
Look at me, please.
Their resting eyes, pupils round and wide, caught mine. Arresting.
Even with his mic privileges revoked, he still finds a way.
It was a legitimate question.
Jesus Christ, I have to make it next. You're gonna mute all of us.
Mason nodded and then began chanting in Iberian, holding my gaze the entire time. Oh, my autism could never. Place your hands between the cards.
Place your hands between the cards.
What do you mean between the cards, like this? Do I do it like this? I did. More chanting ensued.
Loki, you want this tarot deck?
You know they only made like 5 cards for it.
Yeah.
To my amazement, colors began to swirl on the blank cards. I almost startled in surprise, but Mesa's supple hands held mine in place. I forced myself to breathe regularly and watched as the colors formed into full images.
Low key, I wouldn't mind one of these as like a little standee.
Oh, that'd be cute. If I had been skeptical about the Niberian religion before, I was much less skeptical now.
Excellent. Now, let's see.
They relit the oil lamp and we examined the cards. They depict an armored Niberian figure wielding an Avalon sword, a dual-faced character listening to something against a wall, and a person who appeared to be performing magic of some kind. The cards had titles, but they were in Niberian, so I couldn't understand them. Mesa pointed at the first card.
Ah, the knight. That seems quite in keeping with your nature, my dear. You could choose to be a protector for the people of Nottingham. The second card is the spy. Yes, with your skills, infiltrating a powerful household would be a good way to effect change.
Mesa turned their attention to the third card. Their brow furrowed for a few moments, and they spoke haltingly.
I'm not entirely sure here. There's a bit of a cultural barrier. This is a version of the death card. It's not what you think. It's usually a card for those who cause or experience great change. But I think the person is meant to be a druid. You're not a druid, are you?
Not in the least.
Well, then, give me a moment.
He just shakes the card like he's trying to fucking develop a Polaroid.
It's like...
Mesa put their hand over the card and their eyes unfocused. A soft glow shone between their fingers as they concentrated. Then, out of nowhere, they gasped and flicked the card off the table entirely. They're like, oh, fuck
Yeet.
that. They're like, ah.
That is not acceptable. If you follow that path as you are, you're almost certain to perish.
That doesn't sound good. No, but then why? Hey, if death card's not supposed to be bad, why am I gonna make fucking die?
Why am I gonna make fucking die? It's like, listen, they were confused too.
I was interrupted by the sound of bells ringing by the front door. Someone's coming, quick.
Bitch, get the fuck out of my line. Someone's coming, quick.
Sirkat! I hastily shifted into my Lady Anne form. A few minutes later, there were 3 short, sharp knocks on the front door.
Is that the guard? They knocked like the guard.
Mesa looked terribly nervous, so I took it upon myself to answer the door. It was not, in fact, the guard.
It was the guard of the guards. Houston, we have a problem. McDeath nugs. Oh, those sound good.
Lord Joffrey was standing at Mesa's threshold, and he was entirely alone. I stood there, stock still, speechless.
Shit. It's a fuzz. Lady Anne, I would speak with you.
Oh, with me specifically. I found myself unsurprised that he wasted no time with pleasantries.
Lord Joffrey, welcome. Please do come in.
Mesa had rallied upon seeing a distinct lack of guardsmen, and I opened the door wider to usher the Lord of Nottingham inside.
I'm the fortune teller, Mesa. Pleased to make your acquaintance, my lord. Would you like some tea? No, thank you. I will not take much of your time, but I'm pleased to meet a fellow... What did they call us? Yes, Moggy.
Lord Joffrey's lips twisted with dark sarcasm.
Oh, I'd heard the rumors of your heritage, but I thought them baseless slander.
Mesa's return smile was rueful. Surprisingly, these two appeared to be a match for each other.
My mother is Niberian, so I fear it's all true, though I've never had the privilege of visiting the land myself. At any rate, Lady Anne.
Yes?
I recall from our first acquaintance that you are looking for a Lady Chamberlain position.
My eyes widened, so Sir Guy's rumor was true. Yes, my lord.
It seems we have an opening, one that's been rather difficult to fill. Frankly, I could use someone who isn't already wrapped up in local politics. Would you be willing to take a challenging assignment? I assure you it's the best offer you'll receive in Nottingham.
I had the feeling that challenging assignment was an understatement. With the high tensions Mesa had described between Lord Joffrey and the local nobility, I was more than aware diplomacy was not my strong suit. Still, the image of the spy from Mesa's card danced in my imagination. I am quite flattered by the offer, my lord. May I have some time to think it over?
I would prefer an answer on the morrow, in person.
A powerful lord's preference was in order, of course. Lord Joffrey reached into his doublet, pulled out a wax-sealed scroll, and handed it to me.
A summons, presented at the gate.
Yes, of course, if I decide to take you up on the offer. I mustered up a look of mild defiance. I was not about to let him assume I would simply take orders without due thought. He shot me an amused look in return.
I look forward to working with you, Lady Anne.
With that, he turned on his heel and walked out the door. It was as though a storm had swept through the cabin, leaving confusion in its wake.
I fucking love him. He's such a shit.
He is. That's why he's my second favorite after Mesa. I watched him walk a short distance and mount a piece of darkness that solidified into an impressive black great stag. And then he was off.
You know, he reminds me of Colonel Brandon from Sense and Sensibility. Alan Rickman's character.
It's almost as if he was based off Alan Rickman.
Was he?
Yeah, he's
Colonel Brandoning all the way up in this shit.
He is based specifically off Alan Rickman as the Sheriff of Nottingham in one of the Robin Hood movies. He played the Sheriff of Nottingham.
It might have been the 90s one with...
90s, early 2000s.
With, God, Adam, Dances with Wolves.
My brain wants to say Kiefer Sutherland.
No.
But it's not Kiefer Sutherland.
Costner.
Kevin Costner.
Kevin Costner is Robin Hood.
The American Fabio of the 90s.
Oh my god. Who else was in that movie that was super
Slater.
famous? Christian Slater.
Alan Rickman. Oh god, I can't remember his name, but Guy of Gisborne was played by the guy who was the villain in The Crow and Alien Resurrection. He was the smuggler in Alien Resurrection.
That had
Can't remember his name.
God damn.
Morgan Freeman. Was Morgan Freeman in it?
How about
Yes.
now? Does that work? Jesus. Can't take me anywhere, guys. I thought I hit the transition button earlier. I never did. Thank you for that, Willow.
What happened?
Oh, I never transitioned the fucking one side to the other. I don't know if OBS is being weird or if it's just little old me. Yee. So Willow just got to hear us talking.
You've been doing that a lot lately.
I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, twice, but still.
Yeah,
That's
a lot lately.
Adam?
Twice.
Adam, aren't you the one with the stream open looking at the scenes? Couldn't you have told us?
I'm not really watching it. It's open, but I'm not really looking at it. I'm looking at the big screen that I can actually read.
Excuses.
Anyways.
Yo, what's up, Chippy Witch Kitty?
Chippy!
Everyone was listening to a podcast. Jesus Christ, that was 45 minutes of them not seeing anything that we're doing.
Well, you're getting better. It was an hour last time.
Yo, oh, not by much.
Unfortunately. Well, we're going to get to see my beloved Joffrey again. It's
Chippy
fine.
agrees with me. It is Adam's fault. Thank you.
Okay. Click the next.
I have no allies left.
Line?
I turned around and saw Mesa with their hand over their mouth, stifling laughter. Mesa?
I'm sorry. He's just so... Oh, I don't know.
My host broke down in a fit of giggles and as soon joined them. When we'd finished laughing, I sighed and stared at the summons as though it were about to come to life and bite me. Now what am I going to do?
Well, my dear, I do believe we have your spy option covered. You'd be well placed there to learn about Nottingham and make some changes.
I know, but I just ran away from the man. Might we look into the night for argument's sake?
As for that, I do have an idea.
By all means.
It's something I've been thinking about. It might not look it on the surface, but Nottingham's becoming a battleground. Lord Joffrey is determined to collect his taxes, come blizzard or high water. Robin Hood's rebels do their best to steal those taxes back and oppose Lord Joffrey's men. But what becomes of the people caught in the middle? I see so many horrible visions, Marion, and I wonder, perhaps with a worthy swordsman like you by my side.
They look down at the floor.
It's probably a foolish notion.
Okay, here's what I'm imagining. I believe it's the Evil Dead 3 poster with Ash standing and the lady clutching his leg.
Mm-hmm.
Except, Marion's the one standing and Mace's the one clutching her leg. No, actually, I rather like it. It's worth considering. I decided to retire for the night and think about my options. Where could I do the most good?
I accidentally breezed through that.
I could protect the people of Nottingham on the ground level with Mesa, or seek to make change in the halls of power as Lord Joffrey's Lady Chamberlain. I would choose Lord Joffrey so we can see Lord Joffrey.
Sorry, are you being hired to work for yourself?
We are sort of taking the position we would have had if we married Joffrey.
Nottingham, Chapter 2. Trouble comes in threes.
In this case, 3 hotties. Nottingham Hold, a castle dating from before the Pact was enacted 500 years ago. A time when Avalon lords fought each other, scrabbling over territory like frenzied rats. That sort of architecture was no longer necessary in our enlightened times, yet I had to admit it was quite impressive. As promised, the next day I found myself inside that hold. I sat in an imposing and sparsely appointed study, facing the Lord of Nottingham.
I'm pleased to see you chose wisely.
He didn't look particularly pleased, but I suspected that was simply his demeanor. A rebellious corner of my mind pondered whether it could be more fun to make him smile or drive him into an incoherent rage. I feel like incoherent rage is perhaps Robin's job.
I have a feeling he would enjoy her attempting to make him mad.
I feel like he would. He'd be into that. I haven't accepted yet. I need to know what's expected. Nottingham Hold is much larger than, Tweaksbury. I'm up for the challenge, but it's important to know the details. He nodded.
Naturally. I have a contact here for you to peruse.
Good. May I ask a few questions?
As long as you apply your reasoning before formulating them, I welcome questions.
I know you said you were looking for an outsider, but why approach me? You didn't seem to approve of me when we first met.
Yes. It's true that the frying pan incident wasn't the best first impression, but we are in a bind. My current Lady Chamberlain is to marry at solstice. I was also meant to marry, but negotiations fell through.
Negotiations fell through, I suppressed a snort. I suppose that was one way to describe my refusal letter disappearance. It's okay, I'm single. I, Mega-han, am single.
The tea is so strong.
I'm not good with numbers, though. I'm sorry. I'll be a terrible Lady Chamberlain.
Your willingness to speak up for yourself recommended you to me. Okay. I was just like, that sentence felt weird to me. A certain acquaintance of mine put in a good word on your behalf as well.
I remembered who had originally informed me about the position. The Chevalier?
Sir Guy, yes. It seems he was impressed by your intelligence, and that is a trait I value highly.
I favored him with a short, pleased smile. Very well. But why seek me out yourself? It seems you could have simply had the summons delivered.
A personal visit seemed the most efficient way to achieve my desired result. Was I incorrect?
I couldn't exactly argue with that, seeing as I was sitting in front of him. I suppose you were not. desperately wanted to ask him about the problems in Nottingham, about why he was indenturing people, about the actions of the guard. Bide your time. You gotta work into it.
You gotta antagonize the fuck out of him a little bit first.
You don't even have the job yet. You gotta get in there first. I was eager to begin unraveling the secrets behind Nottingham's troubles, but now was not the time. I decided that waiting to gain Lord Joffrey's confidence would be a more effective strategy. Instead, I decided to ask something more practical. Are there retainers tasked with directing the Lady Chamberlain? Most households had several go-betweens tasked with assisting communication between Lord and Lady.
You will take orders only from me or my chief retainer, whose word is as good as my own. I will introduce you later.
From what I'd seen so far, it was not surprising that Lord Joffrey was so hands-on.
How hands-on is he?
Oh, you have a
Okay.
retainer. Does that mean you used to have braces?
God damn.
A lord willing to make himself bait for an assassin and appear at a fortune-teller's door in the middle of the woods might have a minor issue with delegation, but well enough. All right, let's see that contract.
Here, look it over. I trust there will be no objections, as it is quite standard.
He placed a short document in front of me, and I read it carefully as he sat back in his chair and watched me. It was indeed quite standard, but for the stipulation I would have additional duties related to holding security as qualified and assigned. That sounded interesting. These additional duties
Will be discussed when and if you are ready.
Fine. Mildly annoyed, but seeing no reason to refuse, I signed the contract with a flourish and flipped the parchment back around to him.
Excellent.
Just since you can stop being that person at any time.
He spoke the superlative as though he were describing a merely passable breakfast spread.
My outgoing chamberlain, a Lady Edwina, will show you around. You'll be finishing the preparations for a dance tomorrow evening. I will introduce you to the local nobility then.
Tomorrow already? But I'm just Lady Chamberlain, not your wife.
Best make it clear to them that I won't be getting married, after all. You can handle the preparations, yes?
There was obviously no choice in the matter. On the inside, I rebelled against his high-handed manner. But I reminded myself I was here to assess the situation in Nottingham, not for a long-term career as the haughty Lord Joffrey's Lady Chamberlain. Not to mention I most certainly could handle the preparations. Of course, I hope to exceed your expectations.
Good. Welcome to Nottingham Hold, Lady Anne. I love voicing him.
He's grumpy but direct.
Yeah.
As I stepped out of Joffrey's office, I saw a female figure at the far end of the hallway. Her features were unclear in the dim light, but she paused, looked my way, then rushed off in the opposite direction. Oh, I know who it is. Was that a flash of red hair? I saw as she passed through the candlelight. No, probably just my imagination. She hadn't been dressed like a servant, and Stenmen were nearly unheard of in Avalon's halls of power. I shrugged and went to the kitchen to find Lady Edwina. The next evening, I surveyed Nottingham Hold's great hall with pride. Lady Edwina had done solid preparatory groundwork, and I'd scrambled to polish it all off with festive decor and thoughtful placement of refreshments. Nottingham's nobility mingled about the hall, seeming to enjoy themselves. The servants were efficient and needed minimal instruction, so I was simply watching the scene from an unobtrusive corner, trying to put names to the most important faces as Edwina had described them to me.
Milady, Lord Joffrey requests your presence.
I nodded and exited the main hall, climbing the back stairs to the second-floor gallery that would be filled with lower-class petitioners when court was in session. When the great hall was being used for festivities, performers occupied the dais in the hall itself, so Lord Joffrey held court upstairs. Bitches, Motherfucker isn't even at his own party. He's like, no, fuck that. I stepped through the door and Lord Joffrey came over to greet me.
Man, to have the power to not just, like, I'm not going to my own party. Pfft. I got shit to do. Waste of time and money, these soirees. But they do make the nobility a touch more cooperative.
He grumbled as he led me to the balustrade.
Balustrade, nice. Those are fucking big words.
His herald was already positioned to announce us.
My lords and ladies, your attention please. Lord Joffrey will address you now.
I looked down at the crowd as 50-some sets of eyes gazed up at us in grudging expectation. Most of them were trained on me. I stood ramrod straight with as much dignity as I could muster.
Good knights and ladies, thank you for your attendance this evening. As you may have heard, tonight was to be a night of celebration for my engagement in marriage.
Murmurs rushed through the crowd at that was to be.
I regret to inform you that the marital negotiations were not concluded. I would beg your indulgence for more time in order to find the best lady to represent Nottingham's dignity and honor.
He did not sound like he was begging anybody's indulgence. He sounded as though any objections would be dismissed out of hand. The murmurs of the crowd intensified.
I fucking live for this guy. We would like to thank Lady Edwina for her service to the holding and congratulate her on her marriage.
The crowd turned and applauded the lady who was standing amongst them with a handsome young man, presumably her soon-to-be husband.
And I would like to introduce the Lady Anne of Tewkesbury, who has graciously agreed to act as our Lady Chamberlain for the foreseeable future. Please treat her with Nottingham's utmost respect and hospitality. Hail, Lady Anne! Hail, Lady Anne!
An accented voice from the back. Was that? I looked in vain for a tall blonde figure as the gathering hall took up the call.
Hail, Lady Anne!
And that was it. I curtsied to the assembly and Joffrey gestured to the musicians on the dais across the way. They began to strike up a dance and Joffrey nodded to me in dismissal.
Please, do enjoy yourself.
You're not coming down?
And be mobbed by mewling idiots asking for impossible things? I prefer they come to me here, individually.
Of course he did. I smiled as graciously as I could and fled his presence, joining the crowd on the floor below.
Making him climb the fucking stairs if they want to talk to him.
Also, it does make sense because he does, if you remember earlier, he does have a, pretty noticeable limp.
Mm-hmm.
So, he's not gonna want to fucking go downstairs. And,
That's an absolute power move, too. I'm like, no, bitch. You come to me if you need something. I'm not walking around you people.
Also, my leggy hurts. So I'm not coming downstairs. You can come see me upstairs. Perhaps I wasn't naturally talented at the diplomatic side of rulership, but I certainly could do a better job than Lord Lonesome upstairs.
Damn,
listen, I will
Marion.
play Parcheesi upstairs with Lord Joffrey, okay? The Nottingham nobility were cordial enough to me for now. They introduced themselves, and the more important nobles were gratified when I identified them correctly. And yet, I could see the doubts and questions in their eyes. I was sure I was the topic of more than a few whispers in the corners, but all this was familiar territory to me. All of them had things they wished me to bring up to Lord Joffrey, of course. They were the opposite of the townspeople's concerns.
Of course.
Complaints about ungrateful merchants raising their prices, requests for personal favors that I suspected Lord Joffrey had already turned down.
Yes, I know.
Most curious were the worries about Robin of Locksley and his rebellion, which was being blamed for every petty theft in the area.
No, just the theft of your petty ass.
I wasn't certain why a political rebellion would be known for theft, and made a mental note to investigate that topic further. I answered all these requests with non-committal courtesy, which was, of course, the best they could hope for at this juncture. It was easy to mollify them as a mere retainer rather than Lord Joffrey's actual wife. I just lost count of how many of these conversations I'd had when I turned and found myself looking straight at Sir Guy. So he, indeed, had been the one to start the cheer for me after Lord Joffrey's introduction. He gave me a charming smile.
Would you do me the honor for this dance, Lady Anne?
Gladly. He gently led me into the proper hold, and we stepped from the side of the great hall into the dancers. It didn't take long for me to decide he was the most skilled leader I'd ever danced with. His grip on my arm and waist was firm but not demanding, and he was able to direct my motions with the subtlest of movements. He was utterly graceful yet supremely confident, and I thought that even if I hadn't known the steps, I might have been able to follow him with ease. It felt like I was floating. I looked up into his eyes, and he regarded me with equanimity, rather than shying away from my gaze nor showing untoward interest. His smile seemed genuine, but his eyes were clear and cold. As when we'd first met, I had no idea what this man was thinking. I very much wanted to know. Mentally, I shook myself. I was here to do a job, and I couldn't let this chevalier lull me into a false sense of whatever this was. I needed to come up with something to say in order to distract myself. Sir Guy, I understand I have you to thank for recommending me to his lordship?
I should probably say you're quite welcome, yet instead I rather wonder, how would you be willing to repay me?
What? I had not expected that sly remark or the look that came with it, but he gave me a quick spin, and when I faced him again, his expression had been ironed back into that look of placid courtesy.
I jest, of course, but if by chance you might be interested in doing your part for the king and country.
I'd be happy to assist the crown within reason, of course.
As I suspected, you agreed to assist my friend the sheriff, so naturally I thought you must be a dutiful young woman.
The sheriff? That was not the address of a friend toward Lord Joffrey.
Ah, to your left.
Expertly, he steered us out of the way of an inebriated pair who were rather off the count. That sorted, we continued dancing until the music wound down. Guy's hand left my waist, which suddenly felt bereft. His other hand slid down and took mine, which he kissed while taking a deep bow.
Meet me in the rose garden tonight?
His soft voice seemed almost laced with seduction. After dealing with Lord Joffrey, I noted that it was genuinely a question, not a command. All right, when I'm done with my duties. He gave me a dazzling smile and escorted me back to the side of the room. We had no sooner reached the edge of the dancing area when a sudden exhalation of shock swept through the hall. I looked up. Please, 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 please. Though I had entered the upstairs gallery via the back way, it also boasted a staircase on either side that led directly into the great hall. Come on. Oh, no, it's just Joffrey. Lord Joffrey was descending one of them, and the room was quickly abuzz. The musicians had even stopped playing, so I could clearly hear the comments of those around me.
He never comes down. What is he going to do? Did Sir Guy make him jealous? Nonsense, you heard the man. She's not his wife.
I wasn't shocked that these nobles showed no shame gossiping about us right where I could hear their words. That was the way of things. Besides, I had to admit, I was also curious about what Lord Joffrey was doing. Stairs did not seem easy for the man. He descended them slowly and with as much dignity as he could, given that his left leg was obviously injured or lame. I turned to Sir Guy to see his reaction, but he had disappeared. When I turned my attention back to Lord Joffrey, I realized that his gaze was squarely on me. He reached the bottom of the stairs and strode in my direction, ignoring the few paltry attempts by others to catch his eye. The crowd parted, giving him a clear path to me. I stood there like a startled deer. Bitch same. He stopped in front of me and bowed his head slightly.
Lady Anne, a dance, if you will.
Sir, but your leg is all fucked up. You sure you got this, King? He wanted to dance? I was aware of the entire room staring at us. With that leg, could he even dance?
Maybe you can dance if you want to.
You can leave your friends behind.
You don't have to? I murmured awkwardly at him. He frowned.
I wish to.
He turned toward the musicians on the dais who looked nervous.
Musicians, the soldier's reel.
With that, they struck up the tune and he took me into his arms. Sir.
Lord Joffrey's not about to be shown up by some wafting tart.
I read the line. If Dancing with Sir Guy had been floating on...
You got this.
Had been like floating on a cloud, Dancing with Lord Joffrey was like being swept into a thunderstorm. His hold was unyielding yet not painful. He'd chosen a dance which relied on his right leg, so his lead was strong despite the occasional wobble. He knew the steps well, and his intent stare remained firmly upon me as he swung me around the dance floor. I couldn't have taken a wrong step if I tried. His control over me was that commanding.
Damn!
I wasn't sure if it was frightening or exhilarating. I didn't have the breath to break the silence between us, so I decided to give myself over to the sensation and enjoy myself.
I'm in danger.
After some time, he pulled me in and dipped me. His beard
got dipped!
Rasped lightly against my jawline as he leaned toward my ear.
Don't underestimate me.
Hi.
He got that grumpy riz.
His voice was a low growl, and I felt the heat rise below my cheeks. I'd only been attempting to be...
Solicitous?
Solicitous? And yet... Point taken. I stared back with what I hoped was equal intensity as he pulled me back to my feet. It felt
It
felt important not to break away from those storm gray eyes that were concentrated on nothing but me. Unfortunately, team, he's the last route to be made.
No! He's my favorite!
However, I am your Lady Chamberlain, and if you do need assistance with anything, I will not think less of you for asking. His eyes widened for the briefest of moments before he composed himself.
Point taken in return.
Did his grip loosen ever so slightly, or was it just my imagination? We returned to dancing in silence until the song was over, at which point I expected him to offer me his arm.
He just walks off and leaves her there.
Instead, I felt his hand on the small of my back, guiding me with him to the doors at the back of the great hall. As usual, I was given no option but to go along with his wishes. All eyes were on us as we exited the room.
Come. Already in front of all these people?
Sir!
Hey! If you want my kind of jokes, you shouldn't have muted my microphone.
He released me as the large double door...
Oh shit! God! We're fine. Everything's
The
fine.
large double door shut behind us. Then he opened the back passage up to the gallery. He gripped the railing tightly as he climbed the stairs behind me, but he made no complaint. Ooh.
He's gonna grip my railing tightly? That doesn't even make any sense.
He is having a time. His leggy extra
Oh
hurt.
man, that probably hurt a lot. Adam, are you feeling sympathy pains?
Adam, imagine if
I'm
you
so
just did the
annoyed.
fucking waltz.
That Ashlee is making the kind of jokes she rolls her eyes at when I make them.
It's only okay when I do it. Rules for thee, not for me.
It's my French coming out.
Joffrey's gonna need some weed and a nap. Once again, we had the gallery to ourselves. He sat behind the railing and motioned for me to join him. I glanced curiously over at him as he gazed down at the hall below. Thank you for the dance. Is there something you need from me?
Lalonde.
He spoke, still looking down at the dancers below.
I don't know his intentions, but showing you favor in that way was certain to whip up unnecessary gossip. Without countenance, you can imagine he's rather popular with the young noblewomen, but normally he pays them no heed.
I don't think he
pays them at all.
Oh.
I don't think he intended to call that kind of attention to me. He hadn't he?
He hadn't, had he?
He hadn't, had he?
Even so, I judged it prudent to give them something else to think about.
So he'd been trying to help me still. It's all right. I can handle a few wagging tongues. He turned the full force of his intense gaze upon me.
You are my Lady Chamberlain. It is my duty to protect you. I take my duties very seriously, Lady Anne. But no matter. She will mesmerize them now, as she always does.
She? Ladies and gentlemen, the single lesbian in this game. As I spoke the word, a hush fell over the room, the musicians stopped playing, and a woman stepped onto the dais with them. A shockingly familiar woman.
Ooh.
So the thief I'd met a few days ago was also a musician? How had she weaseled her way into Nottingham Hold? She began to sing Greensleeves, a popular lament. I was transfixed from the moment she opened her mouth. Her voice was smooth and lovely, but there was something more to her than that. I'd sensed it when I first met her, but there was a mysterious, attractive quality to her. It was magnified by 1,000-fold when she sang. It's called being a bard.
That charisma!
Charisma proficiency. It felt like she was singing directly to me. Was she looking at me? I thought she might have been. No, surely that was simply an illusion of her performance. I tore my eyes from her performance long enough to look down upon the crowd. She was having the same effect on them. They stared up at her, transfixed. She moved into a series of popular ballads, including a few about the Iberian War. I felt like I could see the stories unfolding before my eyes, and I lost track of time. Finally, her performance wound down, and she bowed with a flourish. I watched until she left my sight, drinking in the boisterous way she moved. I imagined that infectious smile aimed at me and felt butterflies in my stomach. I paused for a moment. Had I been thinking something important before her performance? Never mind. I turned to ask Lord Joffrey a more pressing question. Who is she?
Alana Dale, a bard of some repute. Arrived in Nottingham a few years ago, but was largely performing in common taverns. Can't imagine why. I brought her into my court.
Ah, Stenish heritage by the name, and she lives here in the hold?
Yes, she's quite exceptional, is she not? You should make her acquaintance.
I would very much like that.
Feel free to do so once you've completed your duties. Meet me in my office tomorrow at mid-morning bell.
After the guests left, I changed back into my normal clothes and was orchestrating the cleanup down on the great hall floor when a young page approached me.
Milady Anne, Mistress Alana would like to see you about an issue with her quarters.
Mistress Alana would like to see me about her quarters, would she? Certainly, thank you, Stephen. He beamed cherubically at me and ran off as I searched for the red-headed bard.
Of course the bard's gotta be a redhead.
I found her to the side of the dais. Alana Dale, I presume. I'm Lady Anne. It's nice to officially make your acquaintance. Your performance was wonderful. She flashed that irresistible smile at me.
If it isn't Miss Noble, welcome to the big, happy Nottingham Hold family.
I briefly wondered if I should correct her impertinence with my proper title, but the moment passed and her smile was too bright and friendly to bother. I understand there's an issue with your quarters.
Yes, come on. Shall I show you now? Shall I show you?
She led me out of the great hall down a hallway that housed numerous higher-level household staff and guests.
That's one way to get someone in your bedroom. Jesus. So what's a nice girl like you doing in a dour old place like this?
Looking for a good bard, naturally. Do you know one?
Damn, they're starting.
We laughed, and were soon chatting merrily like good friends. Jesus.
Not unexpected.
We reached her doorway, which she opened with a flourish. I stepped inside to a scene I hadn't expected.
Look, she's busy.
It looked like a theater troupe's luggage had exploded across the room. Clothing and cheap baubles were strewn about as though somebody had sacked the place. Yet, on one side of the room, there were several instruments that appeared untouched and well cared for.
She's got priorities.
What happened here? Were you robbed? I can have someone help you clean it up right away. She closed the door behind us firmly.
I'm in danger.
Oh, it's always like this, but more importantly.
She pulled out a dagger and advanced on me.
Who are you and what are you doing here?
The amiable bard had completely vanished, replaced by an angry ruffian. Her eyes were narrowed in suspicion, and from the way she held her weapon, I had no doubt she knew how to use it. I struck a defensive stance, though without even my boot dagger to back me up, my options for fighting back were limited. Still, I had a feeling that she didn't actually want to hurt me. It gave me confidence.
I would like to say I didn't actually know that she was going to be in fucking danger when I hit that button.
That's how bards work, baby. You get it. They give you the charisma and then they give you the stab. I'm Lady Anne of Tewksbury, newly Lady Chamberlain of Nottingham Hold. I'd ask you to lower your weapon, Mistress Alana. She scowled and tightened her grip on the hilt. She'd stopped advancing on me, but she was blocking my way out.
That's not who you are. I can tell. There's something wrong about you.
With me, I'm not the one holding a knife and babbling baseless accusations. I did my best to sound offended, but her words had shaken me. Lord Joffrey hadn't seemed to notice a thing wrong with me, so why would this wayward minstrel? No, that question was for later. For now, I let out a sharp shout and swept my leg at her knee, taking her off guard. She stumbled, and I pounced on her, knocking her to the ground and securing her wrists above her head. The dagger slipped out of her hand. She laughed. Why, Mistress Noble?
Miss Noble? That's a lovely view you're providing me.
I glared down at her.
Too bad you're doing a terrible job convincing me that you're nothing but a poor, misunderstood lady. Whoever heard of a noblewoman who could pull off that?
Actually, the irony is that
she yelled and kneed me hard in the groin. I yelped in surprise and pain as she snaked out from under me, flipped me over, and straddled me just as I had been doing to her. I groaned in defeat, and she smiled smugly down at me. As the pain from her attack faded, I looked up at her and had a strange feeling that was not remotely appropriate for the situation. Ayo! She was panting slightly, disheveled from our struggle.
Jesus!
It looked like she was having fun, and I had to admit she'd been right. It was a lovely view.
Oh my!
And having her pin my wrist down like this was...
Ooh, scandalous.
Wait, what was I thinking? Your grip is surprisingly strong for someone so scrawny. I grumbled at her to dispel those embarrassing notions. She frowned peevishly, then sighed and released my wrist, scooping up her dagger and pointing it at me so that I knew better than to struggle further.
Look, I owe you one. You threw the guard off my trail.
Wait, how do you know that?
I was watching. It was a test. I could tell there was something off about you from the start. Made me want to suss you out. You passed. So whatever you tell me, I won't rat on you to the sheriff. I need to know who you are for my own purposes.
And how am I supposed to trust you after what you did to me that day?
Fine, I'm sorry. Does that help? I was in a tight spot, and I knew you'd get out of it with a little flourish of these precious papers you nobles love so much.
It was as I'd suspected, and despite everything, I found it difficult to be angry with her. It's the boobs. Maybe I was an idiot, but my instincts told me there was something deeply sincere beneath the front she was putting up for me. May I sit up at least? This is a rather uncomfortable way to have a discussion.
I suppose, but one move toward the door and I won't hesitate to introduce you to Mr. Stabby's finer points.
She climbed nimbly off me, backing toward the door while watching me like a hawk. I slowly brought myself to my feet and swept a pile of clothing off a chair so I could sit down. I took a moment to gather my thoughts. Should I tell her the truth? I needed to come up with something, but she seemed to have some ability to see through my disguise. You could use a friend here, couldn't you? That stray thought wandered to the top of my mind, and I realized that yes, I could. For some reason, I had a feeling I could trust this woman despite our rough introduction. Putting faith in my instincts, I made a decision. All right, I'll tell you who I am, but I don't know if you'll believe it.
Try me.
I'm Marion of Glastonbury, the woman Lord Joffrey was meant to marry. Her eyebrows pinched together in confused suspicion.
The runaway bride? Arthur's ass. What are you doing here? That doesn't make any sense.
I have my reasons. I wasn't going to give everything away.
You'll be exposed, you know. Doesn't matter how good the disguise is. The sheriff's smart. He'll suss you out.
It's magical. I look nothing like myself.
Oh.
She thought for a moment.
So you have a renegade druid friend?
Yes, though I can't tell you who it is. My mouth spoke the words on its own. The gaze I entered with Mesa ensured I'd stick with that convenient lie.
Oh, Domino's here.
I don't know. Seems a bit too strange a tale for me, though it's not a bad start for a ballad.
I knew I could fully convince her if I showed her my true form. But did I want to reveal that much to her? Fuck it. Fuck it, we ball. Show her my true form. Alright, if you want proof. I put my hand over my mouth and whispered the word. Sir Cat. Alana's jaw dropped.
By the Frost Queen's chilly tits! I never thought I'd see the likes of that. Yes. You seem like your true self now. Right gorgeous, too. I'll bet his lordship has a portrait of you somewhere, eh? I'll have you try and sneak a peek.
I know he does. He carries a sketch of it with him. Probably some of the guards do as well, since they're looking for me. It seems like he's trying to save his pride, so he hasn't made it widely known that I ran from the marriage.
That sounds like the blighter.
I hastily changed back to Lady Anne just to be safe.
Ah, smart, though. And Blondie Miss Noble's pretty cute, too.
I chuckled at her and she cleared her throat.
All right, just one more question. Who are you with?
Pardon?
You know, would be a Grey Wolf, not with your status. You're not with Robin's rebels. I know that for sure. Did the other nobles put you up to this?
I'm with no one but myself. It's hard to explain, but I want to help Nottingham. I just didn't want to be Lord Joffrey's wife.
Ha! So instead you're gonna go, you're as good as, okay. I suppose you can do a runner anytime you like this way. Okay, those words were words. I didn't understand any of them.
I think that's just how Alana talks.
Okay. Right then, let's say I believe you for now. I've got a proposition.
I'm listening.
You heard my thoughts when we first met. I took this gig in hopes that I could help the poor folk of Nottingham. I grew up in the slums here. They call them the Brambles. They've never been great, but they're in real trouble now. Nottingham's headed for something big, and I aim to make sure my folk come out of it better off. I could use a partner with more power and access than I have. You up for it? Fuck it, I'm in.
What would you have me do?
Just some light spy work here and there. Nothing that'll upset the apple cart too much with his imperious lordship, for now. I hate what he's doing, but there's no point making him mad before we've got a good way to replace him.
I don't know.
How about you think it over and come see me tomorrow if you're interested?
And if I'm not interested?
If you're really here on your own like you claim, I don't see a reason to get in your way. Maybe you can get the sheriff to grow a human heart, make some changes. That'd make me happy even without your help.
She turned her most charming smile on me.
But I'd be happiest with you.
How'd she switch so quickly between angry suspicion and absolute magnetism? I didn't want it to, but my heart did a funny little flip. Working with you might not be so bad.
It'll be fun. All right, go do whatever it is fancy ladies do at this time of the night. Hope I'll see you tomorrow.
Well, if you hadn't, flashed your dagger, we could have done what ladies do at night.
Ooh.
With that, she lowered her dagger and opened the door for me. I left, then leaned against a wall for a moment to catch my breath. That had been quite a ride, but my work for the night wasn't done yet. I had an appointment with the Chevalier. Lantern in hand, I made my way through the gardens, doing my best to avoid guests having trysts in the shadows.
Ooh.
Nottingham Hold's landscaping had obviously been under Lady Edwina's care rather than Lord Joffrey's. It was ornate, rather, where the hold itself was spare.
Sparse?
No, it said spare.
Well-organized plots of fruiting trees and edible herbs gave way to gorgeous ornamental gardens as I walked further from the hold. Thanks to good directions from a gardener, I found the rose garden without too much trouble. It was a wilder-looking area tucked far away from the main hold. I ventured into a cozy corner where I saw Sir Guy relaxing on a bench. The roses here gave off a gentle glow, bathing his beautifully sculpted face in their light. Elfin blooms. I hadn't seen them since I'd plowed over my mother's garden. They were the perfect accessory to the man's seemingly effortless grace. If I were a painter, I might find myself desperate to capture the tableau.
Ooh, fucking vocab words.
My subject noticed my arrival. He smiled at me in greeting and gestured for me to join him. I sat on the bench opposite him.
Do you like flowers, Lady Anne?
Well enough, I suppose.
Have you heard of this? Paul, give me a minute to process that shit. Aesthetes? Aesthetes. Have you heard of the aesthetes? They believe one can discern deep truths by contemplating beauty such as this.
Where was he going with this? I thought he'd ask me here to discuss his work for the crown. Oh, do we want to be philosophical or practical?
I think philosophical.
Let's go philosophical, baby!
Because he'd like that more.
Yeah, but cannot beauty also blind us to the truth, as those roses draw one's attention away from their thorns?
I have a feeling he speaks in philosophy.
Yeah.
An excellent point, milady. Although I'd suggest that it's merely another truth one might discover in one's ruminations. Beauty can elucidate, but we must be careful lest it blind us.
He smiled, looking as beautiful and mysterious as the roses themselves. Indeed, so perhaps you might tell me why you've called me here this evening?
Your wish is my command.
He paused for a moment, caressing an elfin bloom while gathering his thoughts.
He's beaching the fuck out of this place.
He's the beachiest!
Fuck.
I have been...
Me?
Oh my.
I've been sent here to ascertain the situation in Nottingham and ensure it is under control. Not only is it a developing center of trade and craftsmanship, it may soon be a vital city for trade routes between Avalon and Nibiru. Therefore, it's of great interest to Prince John. If I were a central Avalon lord, perhaps I would be content to form an opinion all within my own head. But, milady, I'm a chevalier. Do you know what that means?
I know you're not all born to the position as we are, but I'm afraid I don't follow after that.
The Order of Chevaliers is based on the principles that multiple perspectives are necessary to have a just society. Therefore, exceptional individuals from every social class are invited to join. That principle is very important to me. He wordy as fuck. Ha. I've been observing the situation in Nottingham and have drawn certain conclusions, it's true. But I find myself desirous of a second perspective, another outsider who may see things with an eyes different from my own. That is where I hope you'll come in, Lady Anne. Will you answer the call of the crown and assist me?
That's a lovely speech, but what exactly would I be doing? I've just become Lady Chamberlain, and I have my own responsibilities. Y'all motherfuckers out here giving me a job on top of my job, which I already have another job on top of.
Bitch, I am tired of these side quests. Indeed, I would like to work beside you and hear your thoughts on things that transpire during your more unusual duties.
That's all, but wait. You know about those duties. I don't even know what they are yet.
I hadn't confirmed them until just now, but Lord Joffrey and I may have discussed the germ of such an idea when I recommended you for this position.
Clever of him and sneaky. Why did you recommend me? We've barely spoken.
And yet, I knew when we met that it would be worth keeping my eye on you, Lady Anne.
He gave me a look that would have charmed the antlers off a great stag. Yes, well, then why, He interrupted me, taking my hand and kissing it with exquisite care. Once again, I noted that he was far too skilled at turning that ritual greeting into a sensual experience. Bro, chill.
It would be reckless to show all my cards at once, would it not? You have not yet acquiesced. Love a king that practices consent.
And I will not tonight. I would like some time to think.
Of course, as is wise. Would you give me your answer tomorrow before you meet with Lord Joffrey?
Motherfuckers, can I have a few days? Like 3.
Her day tomorrow is fucking packed.
It's packed. I gotta go see the lesbian bard. I gotta go see my boss, who is also sort of almost my husband. Could be my husband still. And then I gotta go see this guy first. Of course, he also knew about that. It did appear that he was a close confidant of Lord Joffrey, but at the same time, something seemed off about the way they discussed each other. Oh, those are those, like, keep your enemies close. I will think on it, and if I decide to work with you, I will meet you tomorrow before mid-morning bell.
I will be here, my lovely lady, anxiously awaiting your decision.
Right here.
I'm quite fond of this spot. It's beautiful and isolated, an excellent location to exchange secrets in peace.
This man, was he truly an agent of the crown? He must have proof of such, or Lord Joffrey would have never allowed him to be a guest in his court. But pinning him down felt like trying to catch the wind. Also, Prince John is an asshole. Why should I trust Guy, even if hot?
Unless he's not working for Prince John, he's working for King Richard.
That's fair. That was my thought. Is he working actually for King Richard? Because he keeps saying the king. Like he said Prince John once, but he says the crown, but also the king sometimes. And I'm like, bitch, who are you working for? I bade Sir Guy good night and returned to my chambers.
Very exhausting evening.
This had been quite the day. I hadn't expected to have 3 possible people to work with when it came to meeting my goal. A lot of... As a responsible nodal... The idea that Nottingham had slums in the first place didn't sit right with me. Knowing that the people who lived there were suffering made me angry, and making their lives better would reduce the chances of an all-out rebellion. I couldn't get a good read on Sir Guy, but he was obviously intelligent and capable. His duties involved promoting calm and stability in the region, which was also my goal. He seemed to have some leverage with Lord Joffrey as well. If I decided to work with him, I'd first confirm if he was a true agent of the crown. But if that was the case, it couldn't hurt to have someone of that standing in my debt. In my debt. On the other hand, I was currently working as Lord Joffrey's Lady Chamberlain. The best way to make changes might be to stick closely with him, as difficult as that might prove. I still didn't know the truth behind his corrupt guard or the reason why he had instituted a system of indentureship in Nottingham. Would solving those mysteries be the key to saving Nottingham? I suspected I wouldn't gain his confidence unless I focused primarily on building my relationship with him. In whom should I place my trust? A difficult question indeed. Joffrey.
The Joffster.
The end. An in-demand ally.
Okay, we got done in an hour and a half.
What do now?
And most of it no one got to see.
Listen, you.
Listen, we'll fix it in post.
Yeah, we can't fix it in post. Unless I'm just going to sit here and click through everything. Yep, so those are the credits. So now what do we do? Because I haven't purchased the game yet. I don't have the full thing downloaded. Hope you enjoyed the Made Marion demo.
That's a great question. What do we want to do?
Boop. Let's look at the extras.
Do a playthrough with a different path.
No, we just played all the paths.
You played all the paths?
Yep.
Yep. There's nothing in the extras yet.
Well, until we figure out what to do, we can talk about what we feel about each character. So we mentioned last time that Robin annoyed the shit out of you.
Yes. Slowed. I wish there was like a gallery.
It's probably going to be in the full game.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
when we play the routes, we're probably going to play Will's first.
Okay.
Because you liked Will. You liked annoying the shit out of him.
It was one of my favorite things to do.
John was very big and tall and nice. Liked him. Robin is the one in the middle.
Well, hold on. Nobody knows what we're looking at the moment. I gotta put it on the screen. Keep talking. You don't need to stop.
So...
this is the part where we choke.
For the Nottingham group, which is Joffrey, Guy, Alana, and Mesa, there's like the first common route, which is much like how the Sherwood group has like a common route and then you split off.
Uh-huh.
But there's actually sort of two common routes, sort of, kind of. So there's the major Nottingham common route. And then it splits into Mesa's route, Alana's route, and then Guy and Joffrey kind of share a route until it branches off on who you have extracurricular activities with.
Is that going to be in the game, the extracurriculars?
That's why we have the on-off toggle.
Oh. I might have to preview the spice. So
That's what the toggle's for, so we don't have to interact with the spice.
Okay, this, just so everyone can see it, is the Sherwood group. So
yes. Robin, the blonde, is the middle one.
Yes.
Little John is the one on my left there.
Little John's the himbo.
He's not a himbo. He's just a nice man.
He is a nice man. He's also super tall and big.
Himbos are also dumb. He's not dumb.
Oh, okay. Well, then he's he's not a himbo in the dumb way.
He's tall and handsome.
He's large and soft yet firm.
Himbo. Strong, nice, stupid. Those are the three qualities of a himbo.
Okay, I get it. All right. Moving on.
Other side is Will Scarlet. Will is John's half-brother.
The bitchy one.
He's a little bit of a bitch. He has the most complicated outfit in the game. One of the more recent devlogs was just about how complicated his outfit is to program. And we're probably doing his route first because it's fun to bully him.
Yes. Okay, but yeah, so we normally have an extra hour. Bro, we started late too.
Well, I kind of had a thought that we would finish early.
Is this the sound of me having to just like get the rest of the game and then we start it up?
I mean, that's up to you. Also, I will say, with the game, it does not start in the same place as the demo.
Okay.
Like, there's stuff between demo that the demo is just a little bit further in where you actually meet all the characters, where the game, there's a bit of prologue in there.
Mm-hmm.
Before hot men and one lesbian.
So, Megan, can you tell us more about Velvet Cupcake Games? Is this their first game?
I do believe this is their first game.
Are you pulling up things to talk to them about? The things?
I am pulling up things, yes. So, the lot of fun sprites and like expressions and stuff are definitely just a lot of art and a lot of coding.
Mm-hmm.
And I really appreciate the Velvet Cupcake dev team, who is mostly just one person, putting in the work for that.
You can do it, Megan. He's got a van for a little bit more time.
Just looking at the devlog. Yeah, they're starting on extra backgrounds and sprites for John's route.
Is there anything we want to talk about with like the backstory of Robin Hood lore?
There's like a bunch. It didn't originally start with Robin of Locksley being a nobleman. That was sort of added later.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think Marion was original. Like, she came about later. But that's what happens with a lot of like Arthurian stuff too, which Made Marion the game is also. Made Marion the game is like Arthurian legend and the Robin Hood legend kind of merged together. Hence why it's on the island of Avalon. And then Velvet Cupcake Games threw in their own stuff in there, like Niberia, which is sort of its own thing.
Just a moment, we're loading up something, well, not entirely different, but newish.
We're loading up the beginning.
Something.
The official game.
The official game. I don't know if I like either armor set better. You know, I just realized both routes have Fun Hat Man.
Yay, trailers. Guy straight up looks like Adam in his corporeal form.
Adam, how hard would it be to get you in that hat?
Which hat?
Guy
Lalonde's.
I missed it.
It's the blue hat with an ostrich feather. Powder blue.
All right, so purchasing the game, do we get all the roots as they come out then?
Yes.
Cool beans.
Oh, do not load a demo save.
Can I even load the demo save?
No.
Yeah, it doesn't even exist in there, so I don't even know how I would load it.
Oh, this one has extras. We don't have any yet. Turn that music down just a little bit. Oh, wait, Ashlee, hold on.
Yes.
Rebel Kisses, not full Sherwood.
Oh, come on.
We don't want to get kicked off Twitch, Adam.
For Booba.
For Pinor.
I'm
Peebus.
sure it doesn't go that far.
All right.
It's probably just explicit language.
Since you
And,
just...
YouTube already has everybody talking like grade schoolers, so.
Well, that started on TikTok first, but yes.
So, all right. This is the full version. So we just did the
Yes.
demo. Now we're jumping right into the full version of the game that's available on Steam right now.
Yes.
I believe it's also available on itch.io.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. So
It's easier to do on Steam than itch.io, I believe. Or is it easier to do on it? One's easier than the other. I think Steam's easier for when you have roots coming out individually. So current early access status: Prologue, Full Common Roots, Robin's Root, and Will's Root available. Choose to face your destiny at the end of the prologue to reach the Sherwood Common Root and Will's Root.
Lore intro has full text and vocal narration, but full graphics are not available. Feel free to skip if you want to see it in its full glory later.
We should look at it now.
Okay.
Right, meow?
Meow.
For time immemorial, the people of Avalon have shared their land with the mystical Fae folk. These near-immortal beings occupy a mysterious world that is deeply connected to Avalon's natural landscapes. Magically sensitive humans, known as druids, can see and communicate with the Fae. They are able to exchange life energy with these otherworldly beings for magical power. In ancient times, this exchange was capable of producing great feats of magic. But while the Fae are content to simply exist day to day, human beings are ambitious, emotional, and greedy. As Avalon's cities grew, the
That
forests
scared the
upon which
fuck
the
out of me.
Fae lived were cleared.
God damn, scared the fuck out of me.
As different factions fought, druidic magic tore the land asunder. Human
Why is
life
the
is
voice so
short,
low?
and their life energy so enticing? The Fae didn't notice the danger until they began to vanish, along with their ruined woods and mined mountains. That is when the wisest and most powerful Fae lords began to fear for their race's continued existence.
I want to turn on the voice
They
volume.
offered an
They feared for their
ultimatum
racist
to powerful
existence?
human lord
Races.
Oh.
Humans would enter a pact with the Fae that regulated
I thought
land
this was a
use and
different kind of
magical
game for a
power.
second.
Or the Fae would wipe humanity from the face
You're right,
of the
Chibi.
world.
Xbox needs more Otome games.
Under the pact, the Fae would be given control over land use, to be negotiated with their human neighbors, ensuring the survival of Avalon's wild places. Druids would have their power severely restricted, and the old ways of power exchange would be outlawed and forcibly forgotten. Even human fertility would be placed under Fae control to avoid overpopulation. In a land racked with conflict, Arthur also worried for the future.
I want to argue with that,
accepted
but
this
look what happened when we were left to our own devices.
Arthur gathered the greatest knights of the realm to his side, and together they conquered and united all of Avalon under one rule. First, the lands of Central Avalon bent the knee to Arthur and his knights. Then, Arthur defeated his own sister, Morgana, for control over the Kingdom of Brittany to the south. Only the wild Stenish tribes of the north and their Fey neighbors refused the pact. Unable to conquer them, Arthur's druids raised a mighty magical wall that separated Stenland from the rest of Avalon. With the pact now firmly established, King Arthur went on to create an ordered society that has lived in relative peace for 500 years. All folk in Avalon have their proper place. Serfs work the land. Free commoners toil in the cities. The nobility rules and protects the common classes. Druids assist society and negotiate with the Fae. But times change and people change. Suffering in the shadow of a war that barely staved off foreign occupation, today's Avalon has begun to question this ancient order. With a nobility that has grown too secure in its position, and an emerging middle class that seeks more representation and power, the land is ripe for conflict once more. And one young Avalon noblewoman named Marion is about to find herself swept up in that conflict.
I think we should drop a save.
Okay. First, I'm gonna adjust the volume again.
What?
Sorry,
Yo,
I can't hear you.
Those explosions were fucking wild.
They were so out of place and so loud. I thought they were like you had a different program running or something.
Yeah. It's like I turned it up because the voices are so low, and then it's like boom.
Your headphone warning.
It's probably because you had the sound up so loud, maybe?
That was like the regular volume. That was turning it down a little. All right, so how are we doing it? Am I doing narration and Marion and you do other characters?
Sure.
I suppose most great adventures don't start with a heroine in a field dusty dress discussing agriculture with an overly enthusiastic druid. In my case, though, that's exactly what was happening the day it all began. The sun shone bright over the rolling hills of Glastonbury Holding, the fluffy clouds above mirroring the grazing sheep who dotted the landscape. It was early spring, and warm enough to forego my winter overdress at last. I leaned on a fence overlooking the experimental fields I'd planted to replace my mother's ornamental garden. She didn't deserve to have it kept around as a memory of her absence anyway. Instead of growing exotic plants, I instructed the Holding's greening bonded druids to develop new crops that were well suited to the local climate. Greenling bonded, a species of major fae associated with plants and plant-based magic. Unlike the dryads of Earth lore, they are not bound to a single plant or any particular kind of gender expression. The Rose King of Sherwood Forest is a greenling. One of them, a particularly single-minded woman named Kava, had just excitedly approached me with her latest results. She handed me an odd bloom. It looked like an overgrown thistle with a rubbery leafy coating.
We call it an artichoke. It grows well in these soils, so we won't have to import so many greens from the south.
I eyed the thing dubiously. How exactly does one eat this?
The sun... Oh, no.
The sun glinted off Kava's brass bond bracer as she launched into a complex explanation of boiling and disassembling the odd vegetable. My thoughts drifted off to the land that we both were working to improve. Bond bracer, what that? Enchanted bracer, secures magical relationship between a druid and their bonded fae. Distinct look that all Avalons recognize. My holding, my home. It had been my responsibility since I was far too young for the job. Well, shit. But oh, did I long for the chance to go beyond its borders and see what else life had in store for me. My thoughts were interrupted by a racket at the back of the hold, on the other side of the yard. I turned to see the door slamming behind a gaudily dressed city man, a messenger perhaps. He squinted toward Keva and I, then waved rudely.
Hoy, wench! I seek the Lady Marion.
My eyebrow twitched angrily. He likely seen my clothes and assumed me a servant. Had this clod ever left the fanciest districts of London before?
London?
London.
That's how it's spelled.
My pride as a noble demanded I respond to this insult.
Call him the fuck out.
I heard Keva sputter in indignation and put out my hand to quiet her. This was something I needed to handle myself. I straightened up, squared my shoulders, and lifted my chin. If this man wanted to see a noblewoman, I would show him one. Even from across the large lawn that separated us, I could see realization dawn on the messenger's face. I strode purposely through the grass, muddy and soggy from the winter's freeze-thaw cycle. The messenger's eyes widened as they saw the mud cake on my heavy boots. His own shoes, though practical enough for horse riding, would not have survived in Glastonbury's fields. I stopped in front of him as he bowed his head in shame.
As he fucking should.
Do you know who I am now? I calmly asked the stricken man. He nodded. And you understand that not all lords and ladies can wear court finery when tending to their holds? He nodded again and stammered out a sincere, frightened apology. I could certainly ruin his career for the kind of disrespect he'd shown me, but I suspected he had learned his lesson but wouldn't be making that kind of assumption again. Besides, I was eager to read the messages in his hands. I accepted it and sent him on his way. Keva, who had taken a drier path around the lawn, joined me curiously. I watched impatiently as the messenger backed into the hold, bowing profusely the entire way. If this indeed came from London, it had to be from my father. Not caring if Keva saw me slip into complete indignity, I tore open the envelope. Not a moment later, I had scanned the message's contents and shouted with glee. Keva, my father! His lordship is coming home! Wah wah.
I don't know if he's going to be hyped about you destroying the exotic garden.
That evening, I found myself alone in my father's study as always. I'd been alone for a long time. That wasn't the way it was supposed to be. My father was Lord Glastonbury. It was just a small rural holding, but he'd been gifted its lordship as a reward for his wise counsel to the former king. As with all lords, he was responsible for administering the land in the name of the crown. He oversaw trade, defense, diplomacy, and the Druidic circles. My mother, his lady, had domain over Glastonbury Hold, our home and the center of governance for the holding. I was their only child, which was not unusual in the age where the Fae had control over human birth rates. We had been a happy family. My father valued education and gifted me a love of reading. I'd learned more about economics and law than women were usually taught. My mother was a dreamy soul who didn't take well to the responsibilities of running the hold, so I had stepped up to assist her from an early age. She much preferred to tend to her garden, lush with otherworldly elfin-bloom roses. My father doted upon both of us. Then the war broke out 7 years ago. When the Red King, Nazaretus of Nibiru, invaded our borderlands, my father and most of his knights were called to the realm's defense. My mother, like noblewomen across the realm, was left to perform the duties of both lord and lady. It was a task to which she was wholly unsuited. 2 years after the war began, she ran away with the wandering bard who had seduced her with honeyed words about a beautiful life, free from care. Damn, I thought she had just died. At all of 15 years old and with no close relatives to lean on, I had a choice. I could apply to the crown for relief, possibly losing my father, his hard-won lordship, or I could take my mother's place and run our entire holding on my own. I chose to step up and take responsibility for my father's lands. Damn. It wasn't easy. Not all of Glastonbury's lesser nobility respected me, and I was not always good at placating them. The remaining nearby lords, mostly old men who hadn't been sent to war, challenged my authority and the holding's borders at every turn. I rose to the challenge. I hired a sword master and read up on military tactics, learning how to command the small number of my father's guard that had stayed behind. I defended our borders from greedy neighboring lords and the increasing number of desperate bandits who plagued Avalon's byroads. I put my father's lessons on economics to work, ensuring that our textile-producing holding focused on supplying military uniforms, padding for armor, and pennants for the troops. I gained the support of the Druids of Light by funding their botanical experiments, which turned hardy new crops into secondary export for Glastonbury. Through it all, I had few allies and fewer friends. My childhood best friend Evelyn moved far away when we were 16, married off to some distant cousin in Tewkesbury. After that, I largely kept company with my sword instructor Alvin, the son of a wealthy merchant who had left his family in London to pursue his knightly dreams. Teaching bored nobles the art of the sword was the closest he could get, since despite his financial resources, he wasn't nobility. A commoner Alvin may have been, but his intelligence and ideals recommended him to me. We shared many evenings in discussion, and he came to warm my bed on the occasional lonely night.
Oh, what?
When the war abruptly ended 2 years ago, my father thought he would return. But Avalon's hero king, Richard the Lionheart, went missing at sea during the journey home, and his brother, Prince Regent John, appointed my father a special diplomatic representative to Nibiru. For the past 2 years, my father had been securing relations between our two kingdoms, now at peace but with a great deal of unfinished business. In the meantime, Prince John had imposed harsh taxes upon all the holdings and the land, hoping to pay off Avalon's significant war debt. I was proud that I had managed to keep Glastonbury fairly prosperous through this turbulent time. I looked around my father's study, which had been my sanctuary during these 7 years. Soon I would call it my home no longer, but I found I didn't mind. With my father's return, I would finally be able to enter society. That meant I'd be expected to marry, and that I'd do my duty eventually, but I intended to put it off as long as possible. After all, officially entering society meant opportunities to travel, to experience more of the world, and to meet new people. I could learn who I truly wanted to be. It was exciting. Perhaps along the way I could find a young lord who would be amenable to me sharing some of his duties, for if I found I rather enjoyed supposed men's work, like sword fighting and holding court. I was certainly not going to settle for the first suit presented to me. No, I would make the very most of this time of freedom after so many years with heavy responsibilities thrust upon me. My father's return would be the beginning of a brand new life. God damn, that was a lot of reading.
And it's not done yet. Do you want me to take a turn?
Yeah.
Some days later, it was finally time. I heard the carriages alight in front of the hold and smoothed down my skirts in excited anticipation. Taking a breath, I opened the front door to greet the father I hadn't seen in 7 years. He looked so much older than I remembered him, with strands of gray hair peppering his hairline. But his gait was lively as he approached me and affectionately grasped my upper arm. Marion, your portrait hardly does you justice. Look how beautiful you are. It's good to see you, father.
I'll do at least the other character lines.
Okay. I gave him a broad smile, but otherwise did my best to rein in my excitement and respond as a proper lady.
I fear I did not write you to you of this, as I wish to tell you in person, but I have someone to introduce you to.
Oh?
Sorry.
This was unexpected. Had he acquired an important new retainer? He gestured toward the carriage, and I saw a gentleman in unusual robes helping its occupant to the ground. Unlike her assistant, this woman wore an Avalon-style dress, but she did not look like an Avalon at all. Her skin was extremely pale, and her hair was black, straight and sleek. He looked much the same, though his hair hung down to nearly his ankles. God damn, that's a lot of brushing. Were these people Niberian? That kingdom had been notoriously reclusive before its sudden invasion of Avalon, so I had never met a Niberian before. My father was looking at the woman fondly, and I felt a twinge of nervousness about her. No, surely not. She approached us, her long-haired companion walking several steps behind. My father held out his arm to her, and she grasped it nervously. Marion.
Marion, this is Shayla. We married last year in Nibiru. I hope you will give her a fond welcome.
You didn't even meet, you fucking married? Broski, my man?
How did he get word that his wife left him? I guess, like, she would have sent a letter. By the way, Mom ran off with a fucking bard. It's like, all right, bet. I'm getting married.
Grand. Love this.
Wow, it's like I'm getting abandoned twice. Fucking love it.
Shayla looked at me hopefully, and I gave her my best welcoming smile. I was reeling on the inside, but was determined not to give my father a poor impression of me from the start. Encouraged, she detached herself from my father and flung herself at me. She enveloped me in a warm, if entirely improper, hug.
Okay.
Oh, it's good to meet you, Lady Shayla.
Mistress.
She backed away slightly and pressed her palms together on either side of my face in what I assumed was some kind of Nibirian social gesture.
Oh, I'm so excited to meet you. I hope we can be friends while you are still... Love, we'll discuss that later.
He interrupted her and she mercifully detached from me. Father, Papa, do you have something to say to me? To my face? I looked her over, still slightly stunned. She did appear to be a fair bit older than I was, but still young enough to be of childbearing age, of course. And was her belly rounded, just so? Motherfucker, are you having a second child to replace me?
Abandoned 3 times.
I suppose the fate control over our fertility didn't extend past the borders of Nibiru, and my father didn't have a male heir, so it only made sense. Still, my stomach sunk a bit at the thought.
Burn the whole thing to the ground.
I knew that my mother's abandonment must have hurt him just as it hurt me, but this felt like both mother and I were being replaced. I saw my father shuffle his feet a bit, realizing that I was staring in silence. I cleared my throat and invited him and his new bride into their own home. Well, fuck you.
You're welcome for running your fucking shit for 7 years and making it successful.
Later that evening, after my father had toured around the hold, we all had a slightly awkward dinner. He invited me up to his study to talk. I walked into the room slowly, feeling just a bit sad that it was indeed no longer my own special sanctuary. My father smiled fondly at me and gestured for me to sit down across from him.
Mar, I'm so proud of you. I've heard good things when I stopped along the way here. The holding is flourishing when many others aren't. And yet, I'm being fucking replaced. Am I gonna train her too?
I flushed in pleasure at that praise. Thank you.
I only hope I can properly pay you for everything you sacrificed for us. I've been doing everything I can to secure your future.
It's fine, Father, really.
But I've succeeded.
He flashed me a satisfied smile, and I felt my stomach drop for the second time that day.
I've arranged an excellent match for you. I stopped by his holding to finalize the engagement on my way home. Oh, great. So I don't get to have any fucking choices on what to do with myself. It's just done for me.
What? I stared. I can only imagine the look on my face at that moment. My father carried on, trying to mollify me.
I know arranging a marriage like this is irregular, but these are trying times, and you know you're years behind your introduction to society. He's young, he's a powerful lord, and he's favored by Prince John himself. You could hardly ask for anything better than...
No. Angry, be pissed.
It's like you, as Marion, just went through all of that fucking shit for 7 fucking years. The war, not your fault. Then Mom fucking left you when you're fucking 16 years old, and then all of a sudden you're a 16-year-old, not only a lady of the house, you have to do the fucking Lord's duty as well.
Yeah.
And then this motherfucker rolls back in with some new fucking side piece, already prego, already like basically, oh, you thought you were in the well? Not if this one has a pee-pee. Sorry, it's getting a little too aggressive in here. Adam, I love you.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I would feel the same way. I'd be like, with all due respect, Father, go fuck yourself.
Fuck yourself.
How could you? You just arranged a marriage for me without my knowledge? Why even tell me now? Why not just hoist me into a carriage and be rid of me once you... Be rid of me if you want to unload me that badly. I was more than angry. I was fuming.
Yes! Get it! Go! Mar, my lovely, you know I'm not trying to be rid of you. I thought you'd be pleased. That's the thing. You fucking thought. You didn't think to fucking talk to her.
Pleased that I've worked myself to the bone running this holding for 5 years, looking forward to a bit of freedom, and you return only to snatch it away?
Just imagine, like, this is happening, and Meg and I are the narrators in the back, like, this ghostly after image, and we're like, yes!
We are the Greek chorus!
Yes! Young lady, it is unbecoming for you to speak to me in that way. I know what you've sacrificed, and I'm going to do what must be done to ensure a good future for you.
Now my father was getting worked up a well. I scrunched my eyes closed and took a deep breath. It would do no good for both of us to have a heated battle on his first night home.
I think it would.
I know, but I just thought...
It's like, oh, you have to remember, you have to regulate his fucking emotions too, because, you know, you have to be in control of yourself and everyone else in the fucking room.
It's what a noble lady would do. It's what a noble lord would do. Someone's got to be the lord here. I trailed off, feeling tears start to form. I desperately tried to stop them from falling. My father's shoulders slumped.
Would you give the gentleman a look, at least? Perhaps you'll like what you see? Wine.
He bent over and reached into a chest that had been unloaded from his carriage. He placed a small portrait of a man on the desk in front of me. God, I'm just imagining Joffrey had to fucking sit for a portrait. He's just like, I hate this.
A little bit. That's his portrait.
His name is Lord Joffrey of Woodthorpe. He's just been raised provisionally to the Lordship of Nottingham. That gives him far greater status than we have, you know. I do know, I answered petulantly, scrutinizing the portrait. He was handsome enough, I suppose, if the portraitist had painted true. Still, just how old is he?
24. Hardly older than you at all.
Only 4 years older than me? I squinted and my father chuckled.
It's the beard, I wager. Gives a man a bit of gravitas. I got on well with him when we met. He's intelligent and highly competent. I believe those are qualities you value as much as I do. The last time you saw her, she was fucking 12. Wait, how old is Marion now?
She's 20 because Joffrey's 4 years older than her and he's 24.
All right, so she's 20. He hasn't seen her for fucking 7 years. She was fucking 12 when you left. What do you mean what she likes? She was fucking 12.
She was 12. She liked ponies.
My guy, the fucking...
Also, you rolled up with her and a pregnant woman that you married without even telling your daughter.
Jesus Christ.
I have a suspicion she doesn't even have the same food tastes as the last time you saw her.
Yeah.
Let alone taste in people.
Don't mind me, I'm destroying my own studio.
Ashlee just bitch-slapped her microphone off the stand.
Almost. Still mostly attached.
Of course, but I'm supposed to simply ride off and marry him without ever having met him? Without ever even having the chance to travel, to be courted, to exchange at least a few words with my potential suitors?
Like, bro, you could have let her have a fucking vacation. It's like, oh no, you're getting married. Let's go, wedding bells, ring-a-ding-ding. I'm sorry, but I don't think we have that luxury. Of course not. Of course not. I mean, fucking why? Many of our promising young lords died in the war, you know. Lord Joffrey is in need of a wife to support him in his new position, and he believes that you and he would be well matched. I thought it'd be best to strike while the iron was hot. I truly did think you'd be grateful.
Oh, you fucking thought, did you?
You fucking thought.
He gave me a helpless look. Here we were, father and daughter, yet at the same time we were practically strangers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We have some time. Shall we take a few weeks to think things over? I still have a lot of catching up to do here.
I suppose I can do that. I hadn't meant to antagonize my father on his first day home. I simply hadn't expected this kind of news at all, and it was quite unwelcome.
Sorry. Unrelated.
I'm still trying to readjust my microphone. I can't remember how I had it now.
Do we at least get to know how far along my stepmother is with my step-sibling? Half-sibling?
My father stepped around his desk and opened his arms to me hopefully. I gave in and embraced him. It did feel good. But what was I to do now? You know what? I hope that fucking sibling's another fucking girl.
The next morning, worried and weary from lack of sleep, I ventured out to the fields near the guard barracks. I was to meet Alvin for my usual sword lesson. Damn, girl!
Oh, hey!
I can see why he warmed your bed a few nights.
Hey! Good morning, milady.
He greeted me with his usual brightness, but when I looked up to return the salutation, he immediately rushed to my side.
Oh, God. I'm mentally preparing for this already.
Marion, what's wrong? Oh, excuse me, that's your line.
Marion, what's wrong?
I should have foreseen that reaction. Alvin knew me, and he'd always been painfully sincere. There was no way he'd have let me maintain the polite fiction that all was well. I suppose it might be nice to talk to a friend.
With benefits.
With handsome benefits.
An arranged marriage already?
I'd explained what happened the night before. Alvin looked exceptionally distraught over the news. That was odd. Oh, no. Oh, baby girl, no. I don't know what to do. I know my father means well, but I don't want...
Marion.
Oh, no. Baby girl, I know what you're going to say. This is a bad idea. His eyes wide, Alvin reached out and gripped my forearms. I started. It was dangerous for him to act so familiarly with me where we could be seen. He quickly realized what he was doing and stepped back, but his intense look remained.
I was never going to say this, but Marion, I love you.
Oh, bro. I knew that was coming, and we're going to have to let him down hard.
So what you're saying is he's never going to give you up. Never going to let you down.
Ashlee, turn off his mic.
Never gonna...
This is a roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah.
It's true, Megan.
Did I perhaps let you down?
Oh.
Yeah, but she's never going to give you up.
Oh. Okay.
Remember, rules for thee, not for me.
Oh.
That's the law of the land now.
Ashlee, this is your line.
I know. We're just fucking around. I know I shouldn't, but I can't help myself. I could take you away from this. We may not have a title, but we have money enough. I could give you a good life, milady.
Marion's not into you that way.
She did not just spend the last 7 fucking years pulling this whole shit out of the shitter.
Are we taking the no romances option?
No, I mean, our best friend just proposed to us, and we're like, listen, we are friends with Benny's. We are not, I'm going with Marion probably doesn't love Alvin. They're just friends with benefits, and Alvin done fell for her. He broke the first rule of friends with benefits. Do not catch feelings.
He caught all the feelings. Hey, sometimes it works out for her. It's not going to work out.
It's not going to work out for her. It's not
Listen,
going to work
I
out
know
for her.
that's how we started, okay?
He loved me. I stared at him in horror. Time seeming to slow down as my reality unraveled for the second time in 2 days. It was true, we made love on occasion. But I thought we were simply keeping each other company through a difficult time. He'd never told me how he felt, and I...
Bro, the tea is flowing! I paused and tried to look at him. I really look at him as I hadn't before.
My heart didn't beat any faster. I only felt sad and a bit guilty. Ooh, we're gonna have to let our bestie down.
So Maid definitely has to be in the mafia sense, because she's certainly not a maiden.
It's Maid in this sense, as in she's making her own destiny.
I guess, because it's certainly not Maiden Marion at this point.
Depends on your definition of maiden.
Depends on their definition of maiden. The medieval definition? Yeah.
Oh, now you wanted to read it. I'm sorry. That actually was an accidental click, by the way. Can we go back? What's this button? Nope. History. Is there a history?
Ashlee, history's right there.
I'm so sorry, Alvin. I don't care for you that way. If I'd known how you felt, I wouldn't have. Oh, no, it's not your fault. I never said anything because of our stations. He turned the full force of his big brown eyes on me.
Don't you turn those big brown eyes on me, mister.
I wouldn't have used you as a bed warmer had I known. Your brother would have done just as well. No, sorry.
It's all right if you don't love me. I won't force myself on you. But we could still marry. At least you know me. I would never hurt you. Bubba girl, I never hurt you. But I would leave you for the first sweet thing that ran past me.
Hey, be nice to Alvin. He's been our friend for years.
You don't know.
She's a little emotionally ragged right now.
Oh, Alvin, I may have been in a bind, but I knew his solution wasn't right. I wouldn't make you marry someone who doesn't love you. That's cruel.
That one?
Yeah. I may not be free to love, but you are. You should find a wife who returns your love.
But then what of you?
I will find my own way. You know I'm capable.
I find my own way.
I sighed. This man held so many modern ideas. He taught me about the new social movements in London that question the traditional places of men and women in our society. And yet, when push came to shove, he had offered to sacrifice himself in order to rescue me. I simply couldn't let that stand. He's not sacrificing much. I'm pretty sure you could still be friends with Benny's. He did at least have the decency to look chagrined.
You're right. You are capable. That's why I... curse the light.
He swore, coloring at the full realization of what he'd been saying to me.
Forget I said anything. Shall we spar?
You know, why not?
Is that what the kids are calling it these days?
You hush. You know, why not? Perhaps it will clear both our heads. For the next few days, I meandered through life as best I could. I showed my father the work we'd done around the hold, and helped my new stepmother learn the ropes as Lady Gladstoneberry.
I would let their bitch
Here's how you tie a noose.
Hey,
now slip your head in there to make sure it's right.
Hey, the stepmother has not done anything wrong, okay?
Yeah, I know.
Yet.
Shala seemed nice enough, but I couldn't shake the terrible feeling of being replaced. I felt like she was uncomfortably touchy-feely with my father in public as well. It's just how Nibirian people are. They're a huggy culture.
But also keep in mind that...
Avalonian culture is not.
No, not that. Not that even. That Marion hasn't seen her father in fucking 7 years and she feels like she might as well not exist. It would be no different if she wasn't even there.
I also get that, but we also cannot deny the fact that Shala
is not the one at fault here. I agree with that.
It is Papa's fault.
Papa is a douche canoe.
Yes. He must have seen me look askance at her and pulled me aside to tell me that Nibirians were a much more tactile society than Avalons, and that he'd come to enjoy that part of their culture.
I'm sure he fucking did.
I wasn't sure I liked it myself. I wasn't sure I liked her. I definitely didn't like the man who had accompanied her here. He was supposed to be a sage, here temporarily to help her find her way in this new land.
Lore tag. Nibiru's magic practitioners, they receive guidance on the future from Nibirian ancestors in the stars. The weakest and most common are fortune tellers, who largely read tarot. Lesser sages are able to scry for visions of possible futures, and great sages have a variety of powers.
Whenever he looked at me, I felt his eyes were boring through me. One evening, I had just left my room to get a late-night drink of water when I spotted Shala and the sage. They were speaking in an intimate manner to each other near the back door of the kitchen. They didn't appear to have seen me yet, and I hid behind the kitchen door so they wouldn't spot me. Eavesdrop on them. I decided to listen in on my stepmother and her sage, although I almost immediately realized that my attempt was futile. Of course they're speaking Nibirian, you dimwit, I thought to myself. But then they opened the back door. What were they doing going outside?
Oh my, they went in through the back door?
Once they walked a certain distance away, I crept to the window and watched their progress across the back lawn. They headed toward the duck pond near the experimental fields. When they stopped at the pond, I put my boots on and slipped out the back door. It was fairly bright out under the full moon, but I knew our fields and gardens well. I snuck behind hedgerows and through areas that were shaded from the moonlight until I found a hiding spot behind a large willow tree near the pond. I peered out, confirming I was at a good angle to watch Shala and her sage. They were positioned across from each other at one corner of the pond. Neither was looking directly at my hiding spot. They said a few things in Nibirian, but to my surprise, the sage switched languages.
He could probably see your ass.
Perhaps we should speak Avalon? Why? It is good practice for you, is it not? Yes, I guess you're right. I will be speaking it every day now. She sounded a bit weary.
I guess I should have read those, huh?
Whoopsie.
You'll be used to it soon.
The sage spoke placatingly to her, and then they nodded to each other in some kind of unspoken agreement. She watched quietly as he lifted his arms to the skies. He chanted in Nibirian for a few moments, then stared down at the surface of the water. Was he scrying the future there? I didn't see any change in the pond. Eventually he looked up, and I saw his smile in the moonlight's glow.
This will be a good place to raise your babe. They will grow strong, and if you raise them well, they will be beloved by the people of this land.
Shala sighed happily.
So my fortune remains steady?
She thought for a moment.
What about my husband? His daughter troubles him, I know. I will do my best. It is more difficult with these outlanders.
The sage repeated the process I had seen a moment before. I didn't understand what he seemed to be seeing or reading in the water, or was it all for show? How was I meant to believe this man was more reliable than a pine-shaving fortune-teller in the market?
I don't understand everything I saw, but the daughter is destined for a place far from here. As to whether she will marry the man he chose for her, I cannot say. That future is not yet set. I see. Still, I hope we may get along while she's still here.
The two switched back to Nibirian for a bit, then Shala bowed her head to him and returned to the manor. The sage remained behind, keeping me stuck in my hiding place. What was he doing?
He's gonna talk to you, because he sees your ass. You can come out now, Lady Marion. I know you're behind that tree.
He'd known the entire time? Yes,
he
bitch!
did. He's a magic man.
Just at that moment. He wants to make it seem like he knew the
Sheepishly,
whole time.
I stepped around the tree trunk.
Busted.
How did you know?
We Nibirians have excellent night vision, young one. I saw you sneaking out here to spy upon us. Why do you think we were speaking Avalon?
You wanted me to hear. I suppose that prophecy that removes me from my home was awfully convenient for Lady Shala. I was unable to keep my bitterness from my voice.
You mistaken me. I merely saw the insights of the ancestors in the stars. A sage cannot lie. If we do, the ancestors will burn our talent right out of us. I understand it is quite a painful process.
He was calm in the face of my implied accusation, and I felt slightly ashamed. My apologies. This has all been a shock for me. but my future is my own. I don't think I like the idea of having it handed down from the heavens. The sage gave a dry chuckle.
A what?
You are but yet a babe in our ways. How can I explain an Avalon?
He looked thoughtful for a moment.
The ancestors see far more than we on earth are able. Time for them is a sense, like seeing and hearing is for us. But there are many possibilities and paths that we may take. We sages are given images of the most likely paths, but your choices are your own. You may face your destiny directly. For you, that is to marry the man your father has chosen, yes, and yet that path may bring you something unexpected and new. Or you may decide to fight your fate, to make new choices and create new possibilities, and yet, even then, you may find yourself back where you began.
I see. Thank you for explaining that. I felt the weight of what the sage had said to me, and it seemed like it opened new doors. Could I head this future off at the past before I even began? Oh, excuse me.
Marion.
The next morning I awoke with a new determination to prove to my father that I did not need to be married off for my own good. Bitch, he already signed the papers. I would show him just how capable I was all on my own, with no need for a man to guide me.
I was forced into the carriage.
Father was off that day visiting with some neighboring lords, so I cast about for an important task to do. Fortunately for me, a crisis fell directly into my lap. Hello, Sir Theo. Great to see you. My favorite guard, Sir Theo, came trotting up to me soon after I'd left the hold. Come to think of it, Theo was from Nottingham, just like my prospective fiancé. He had fallen in love with a fellow nobleman during the war, and they'd married against tradition.
Get it, King?
Both of their families disapproved of the match, and Theo had come to me a year ago saying he needed to leave town for a bit, to give everyone a chance to calm down. It was quite nice to have a member of my guard whose primary allegiance was to me instead of my father. Theo was happy to spar with me and never objected to my leadership of our troops. He was charismatic and personable, so his support of me helped smooth things over with his fellows.
Lady Marion, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the Foresters have spotted a bandit ambush set up along the main road from London.
Have they now? Perhaps it's not such bad news after all. Gather a Forester squad and meet me at the forest edge. We'll clear them out.
Not letting your father's return slow you down, eh, my lady?
Theo gave me a wry smile. In fact, I was looking for a chance to show him what I can do.
Followed by a whole wheat smile.
Look at the baby.
It's the baby.
I fetched my sword and shield and blew the whistle that summoned my great stag companion,
Kroga.
I mounted her and rendezvoused with Theo.
Did you?
Adam, I swear to God, that's what it's called when you get on the saddle of an animal.
I'm aware of that.
He's just being an ass.
I know. I mounted her and rendezvoused with Theo and the Foresters at the edge of the wood. Unlike guards, who were members of lesser nobility, anyone could be a Forester if they'd managed to forge a bond with a great stag. I got on better with our Foresters than I did the guards. Some of them were old enough to have watched over me as I played in the forest as a wayward child. The lead Forester gave me his report. The bandits looked fairly shabby and had set up in a location that was advantageous to us. The rushing river and the nearby ravine drowned out the sound and made it easier for the bandits to ambush travelers, but it also made it easier for us to ambush them in return. We set off, and I enjoyed the feel of the cool spring breeze against my skin. It had been too long since I was last in our forest, as ordinary as it was.
Slaughtering bandits.
Fey influence here was minimal, but it was still strong enough to discourage bandits from chopping down the trees. I was thankful for that. It kept outlaws from building permanent hideouts in the woods. Sometime into our journey, Theo's stag trotted up to mine.
Seems there's more bandits coming from other holdings these days.
The Prince Regent's taxes are hard on everyone. I'm glad we're weathering them fairly well.
I wonder, what would you do if Prince John and if you were Prince John and found your kingdom in debt to Sunjata?
I'd like everyone to know who couldn't see that Ashlee just sort of had to like put her finger to the screen and read it slowly.
Thank you. Thank you for introducing everyone to my shame.
You're welcome.
God.
Sir Theo enjoyed asking me these sorts of questions. I'd never asked why. If the man had a mind for statecraft, it seemed a shame that he was a mere guard captain. It's a conundrum, to be sure. Imagine, your brother's a great war hero king, but then he disappears and you're left dealing with the consequences. Still, I feel he's a bit too harsh. I don't think Sinjata is going to invade us if we pay them back a bit more slowly. Raise the taxes, yes, but this was too much too soon. Theo chuckled.
Favoring the middle ground as always, eh, my lady? Prudent as ever. Your father was fortunate to have you watching his holding in his absence.
What was he holding?
Thank you.
The hold balls.
I smiled fondly at the man. I knew he planned to return to Nottingham eventually. Perhaps if I had no choice but to accept this marriage, I might at least have one boon companion in that town. He may have been my subordinate, but he was a fellow noble and one of the few people here I dare to call a friend. Unlike with Alvin, I could trust that he wasn't secretly in love with me. I wondered. Sir Theo, you married for love, did you not?
That's why I'm here, avoiding the consequent wrath of our families.
He didn't look the least bit ashamed about that. How does it feel to be in love?
Oh, dear. I suppose you're thinking about the expectations that are upon you now that your father's home?
He didn't know about the arranged marriage, naturally. I am. I've read so many stories where a woman holds out for a love match, but how should I even know if it's worth the trouble?
It's not something I can describe very well, milady. Only you can decide if it's worth searching for love. But if you find it, you just know you'd do anything to stay with them. For me, it wasn't enough that we could meet in secret for all our lives, while I put up a front with some poor woman. Maybe I'm greedy. I don't know. He's my person. He makes me want to be a better man. All for him.
Aww.
It's like there's a fire inside me. It can burn gently like a hearth or consume like a wildfire, but it will never let it go out.
My eyes widened. I've never seen such passion from the man. He loves his husband. That sounds amazing. I'd never felt such a thing. I felt the thrill of attraction and the physical ecstasy of love-making.
It was just like... Okay, line!
But what Theo had, I could never imagine finding such a thing with a man my father had chosen for my social... Could I ever imagine finding such a thing with a man my father had chosen for my social advantage? Are you okay over there, Ashlee?
I'm just yawning.
No, I mean before that when you were fucking cackling.
Love-making. Like, that was just... That's nonchalant. But the thing about love is you never know when you'll find it. Perhaps unlike my parents, your father could even assist you in finding a good match.
So, someday, love will find you.
And break those
chains that bind you.
The ones that bind you?
I offered non-committally. He'd hit too close to my true problem there. I fell silent, my thoughts occupied until we approached our staging ground and dismissed our great stags. We paused while we were still well out of earshot so we could plan our attack. I looked over the gathered company and thought about how I could prompt the best report to my father about my leadership skills. Ashlee, what do you want to do? Do you want to go in there fucking guns blazing, leading the charge, tanking shit? Or do you want to be a strategery? Strategery.
I do like strategy. I'm not sure I see like a lot of point. Like, these guys already trust me, so there's really no point in me trying to like inspire the men.
Yeah,
they already
strategy.
Me. We're here to get the job done, not fucking show off.
Yeah, I knew this group of bandits was likely untrained and under-equipped, but that was no reason to be overconfident. I drew a quick strategic map in the dirt with a stick. Everyone split in two. Theo, take our most hardened men with you to the south side of the road. That's where you think their leader is, yes, Henry? The forester who had scouted out the ambush nodded. Good. Henry, you're leading the squad against the north side then. At Henry's whistle, fire at their bowmen. Then both sides charge in and be sure to keep the two groups from joining together. I'll be at the back of Theo's squad. I'd made sure to learn the series of bird whistles that our foresters used to signal each other. I could use them to change our strategy as the fight evolved. The group nodded and quickly sorted themselves into two strike squads. We were slightly outnumbered by Henry's count, but it would hardly be an issue with this sorry lot. My squad scrambled up the side of the ravine, and as we expected, the sound of the rushing river muted what little sound we made.
I thought they were in England. How can there be a Russian river?
You can continue, Megan.
Our archers took aim and waited. What in the goddamn is that word?
A chaffinch.
A piercing chaffinch call sounded over the clearing. We sprang into action. Our archers' arrows flew and my strike squad rushed the group on the south side of the road. Theo charged the large man that Henry had identified as their leader. I hung in the back of my strike force watching over our group as well as Henry's. The bandit groups had been easily isolated from each other and were largely in confusion. It looked like I wouldn't need to change tactics or even put my sword to use. At least that's what I was thinking when I saw movement out of the corner of one eye. I wheeled around, sword at the ready, just in time to confront a tough-looking man who had been sneaking up behind me. Henry had been wrong. The large man was not the leader. The smaller, angry-looking man had claimed a valuable-looking sword from a previous target, and he apparently had the brains to seek out the enemy leader in hopes of taking a hostage.
Well, if it isn't a pretty lass come to play hero in the woods, don't hurt yourself now. Drop the sword and I won't harm you.
Stab him in the nuts. I don't think so.
Ha! I don't like to hurt a woman, but if you insist...
He lunged confidently at my unshielded sides, but that's exactly what I'd expected. I slammed my shield directly into his arm, knocking it outward. He cursed, barely holding onto his sword as he was thrown off balance. Be they bandits or guards, these men always underestimated me.
These men's, I tells ya.
I'm Lady Marion, and if you haven't heard of me, you're obviously not from around here. I followed my shield bash with a chop at his torso. He barely managed to parry it, but I hadn't honestly been trying to hurt him. As I expected, he was untrained. His face reddened in anger.
I don't care if you're the bloody Queen of Avalon. You lot left us to the miserable fate.
I advanced on him, attacking relentlessly before he could fully recover. He never noticed that I was backing him against a tree. He let out a grunt as he collided with the trunk. I took that opportunity to bash his right hand a second time, knocking his sword out of his grip and pointing my own at his neck. Not all lords treat their chargers so poorly. Surrender and call off your men. He lowered his gaze, resigned. If you need work, we can find a place for you. It's nearly shearing season and we need plenty of hands.
You would do that?
You'll need to make restitution to those you've robbed, of course, but we can ensure you work it off and still get enough meat to fill your bellies. It's a better offer than my father's dungeons, is it not? He closed his eyes for a moment, then cleared his throat.
It is, milady. Lads, surrender your weapons!
And with that, the would-be bandits were subdued. As with most that we'd seen in the past year, they weren't hardened criminals. They were just poor and desperate men doing what they thought they had to do to survive. Inwardly, I cursed my fellow nobles. I knew my family held fast to the concept of noblesse oblige. Oblige?
Noblesse oblige.
Oblige. doing our best to care for the commoners in our charge. Others, though, seemed interested only in sparing themselves the effect of Prince John's taxes. They passed that burden onto the lesser nobility in their holdings, and the lesser nobility passed it on to the commoners.
And the commoners eat their faces.
Eat the rich, baby! It created a chain reaction of economic stagnation that resulted in crime, corruption, and rebellion. I had done all I could to avoid that, and on this matter I knew my father and I were in accord. I could only hope that with this raid I proved my prowess and good judgment, showing my father that I didn't need to be married off for my own protection. That's not going to change his mind.
It's not so much for your protection, he's doing it for your socials.
More social protection than actual physical protection. Father summoned me to his study that evening. I'd hoped my victory in the afternoon would have put him in a good mood, but the look on his face was quite serious.
Thank you for your work today. You handled the situation well, though I must wonder why you felt the need to endanger yourself so.
I'm a fair hand with the sword now, Father, and I know our men have the prowess to support me.
Also, it's like, I don't know if you know this, but I was running this shit for 7 fucking years by myself.
I don't think it was all 7 years. I think it was since she was 15. So 5 years. Her mom was there for a couple years, and then she was like, I can't do this.
Her mom did it for 2 years, but she still had to help her mom.
Yeah.
And then she ran the whole shit. Okay. So she ran the shit by herself for 5 fucking years since she was 15.
Yeah.
That's what concerns me.
He sighed heavily.
Marion, I've been speaking with my peers. Our relationship with the neighbor lords is in tatters. Yeah, because they're a bunch of fuckers.
I winced. I was hoping it would take a bit longer before he heard about that.
And our Glastonbury nobility is happy about your economic leadership, but they're less happy about how you've acquitted yourself socially.
I know, I tried, but they never respected me from the start. The only thing they understood was my money or my sword.
I understand the burden you are under, dearest, but it worries me that your strongest abilities pertain to lordship. Your weaknesses are precisely the gentler talents you'll need as a lady.
I supposed he was right. As both lord and lady, I'd been like a juggler, and I'd certainly dropped some balls here and there. Could I help it if those balls were often related to diplomacy? She's not very diplomatic, and you kind of need that to be a leader. Because, you need to make bonds with the other lords. Both lords and lesser nobles had treated me with disdain due to my age and gender. I simply didn't have it in me to swallow my pride and treat them with deference. They would have walked all over me. But, Father, surely I could support my future husband with my knowledge and skill?
You can best support your husband by keeping to your role in society. As you are well aware, men are to stand in the light and women in the shadow. I only hope I haven't done too much damage by allowing you to stay in the light for so long.
That's old-fashioned thinking. The new philosophy in London says.
Poppycock, who's teaching you that kind of drivel?
I learned it from Master Alvin at first, but then I...
Alvin? You mean that commoner sword instructor you've been tupping?
Oh, Father's getting spicy. He's getting feisty now. Oh, he'd found out about that. Rot the servants and their gossip. This was not looking good.
Did you even consider what would happen if you got with child from a commoner?
I'm not stupid. Mother taught me how to use the herbs.
Well, at least that unfaithful sow wasn't completely useless.
Damn.
You're the one that fucking tupped her, Dad.
He paused.
I'm sorry. That was unworthy of me. There's a lot of things unworthy of you, Father.
I'm angry at her too, but...
I know. I shouldn't have said that.
I took a moment to compose myself. Alvin was one of the few people who fully supported me. I was lonely. It won't be happening anymore.
You did keep your more intimate dealings with him in shadow. I'll grant you that. If only you'd also done so with the Lady of Catherine of Eddington. Damn, a girl.
Lady Catherine, I smiled despite myself. I don't regret that for a moment. My father's face clouded.
You kissed her in front of her father's entire court and absconded with her.
He was insisting that she marry, and she doesn't fancy men at all. She runs our best dye shop now, so recruiting her was a boon for Glastonbury. Thank you. You're welcome. And she is the most excellent kisser.
Cheers, bitch.
Oh.
My father's conservative attitudes were starting to gall me. I couldn't help but add in that last taunt.
You know those sorts of relations are meant to live in shadow. I've had to make concessions to Lord Eddington.
That's your choice. He's an old prat, and I decided his goodwill wasn't necessary for our well-being.
For the goodwill of most of the nearby lords, by my reckoning, Glastonbury cannot stand alone. Your skill at handling our economy has allowed us to hold strong for now, but trouble comes to everyone eventually. What are we meant to do when we need the support of our fellows, only to learn that they have no loyalty to us?
My father huffed out a frustrated sigh before continuing, looking me straight in the eyes.
Marion, I've decided that we should go through with this marriage arrangement. You need a firm hand to guide you through the finer points of rulership as a lady.
No. This was not going the way I anticipated at all. I'm not a child anymore, Father. Yes, I've made some mistakes, but surely you don't mean to punish me just because.
It's not a punishment. It's a proper investment in your future. This is for your own good, and I don't know how to make you see that.
He paused, his brows pinched in annoyance.
Look, here.
He pulled out his keychain and unlocked the top drawer of his desk. I watched as he pulled out some lambskin parchment and placed it in front of me. Those are Alvin's papers. What have you done?
That young man has disgraced himself in my house. I have confiscated his permission to work, as is my right.
Without his papers, Alvin would have to turn to his father in shame. He could no longer work as a swordmaster. It was the very fate I tried to help him avoid by refusing to run away with him. You can't, Father. I invited him into my bed. He would never have dared otherwise.
And it was his duty to refuse you, just as it was your duty not to have pursued such a relationship in the first place. Do you see, young lady? Your actions have consequences not only for yourself, but for all those under your rule.
It was harsh, yet it was true. I knew this only too well. I had done my best as Glastonbury's ruler, but of course I'd made missteps, and now those errors were coming to rest upon my head. All I had ever wanted was to fulfill my responsibilities with skill and pride. I had done so many things right, but without a partner to balance out my flaws, I had opened up vulnerabilities that my father now had to rectify. Was that truly why he wished to marry me off? A less charitable voice in my head still insisted I was merely an inconvenient daughter who was now in the way of his new life. I couldn't fully divine my father's motivations, but I did know one thing. Alvin didn't deserve this fate. At the very least, I had to make this right. I felt bad enough that I had broken his heart. I wasn't about to let my father ruin his life. But how should I go about it? Agree to the arranged marriage. I understand, Father. I will take responsibility for myself and Master Alvin both. I agreed to the marriage to Lord Joffrey and cooperate with you fully. Will you return Alvin's papers to him?
Yes. I believe that will be acceptable. I'm proud of you, my dear.
I gripped my skirts in an attempt to dispel my anger. I didn't want this hollow pride. My father had cornered me, and he knew it.
Jonathan!
My father's chief retainer entered the room.
Could you send someone to town to summon Master Alvin of London? Of course, my lord.
Jonathan bustled off, and for my part, I had no desire to share this room with my father for a moment longer. If I may, I'd like to be alone with my thoughts until he arrives. He nodded and I returned to my chambers. Of course, I wasn't actually idle while we waited for Alvin. I was writing a letter of recommendation for him. He was, after all, an excellent swordmaster. I had promised myself that I wouldn't allow this unfortunate incident to ruin his future prospects. I marked the letter with my personal seal and went to find Theo. He agreed to escort Alvin away from the hold after we returned his papers, and passed the letter to him at that point. Satisfied, I changed into more formal dress and awaited my former lover's arrival. Alvin entered my father's office standing tall, although I could tell he was rather nervous.
Now I have a question. Is Shayla like a noblewoman?
We don't know.
Just wondering. Master Alvin. My lord, my lady. What may I do for you? I've negotiated with my daughter, and she has generously agreed to take responsibility for your ill-advised liaisons. You may reclaim your papers, but I require you to vacate Glastonbury Holding by tomorrow at sundown.
My father held Alvin's papers out to him, but Alvin didn't move. Instead, he turned to me.
Well, what did you agree to?
It's hardly your concern. He narrowed his eyes and turned back to my father.
Pardon my impertinence, my lord, but I believe that as an involved party, I have the right to know the terms of negotiation. This is true.
Rot Alvin and his quality education. He was not going to like what I was about to say. I agreed to marry Lord Joffrey in return for your absolution. Alvin gave me a look that clearly said, I knew it.
Then I, with all due respect, Lord Glastonbury, I refuse the return of my papers.
Alvin, think about this. I cannot have you suffer because...
And I cannot have you suffer a lifelong punishment on my behalf.
I knew he'd be like this. That was why I'd wanted to keep the details in shadow. Blast the light for governing our laws. Master Alvin. I looked sternly at him. It seemed I would need to play the villain. I am your liege, am I not? You swore an oath to me, did you not?
I did, milady.
Then take your papers and go, I command you. When you have returned home to London, you will be released from my service. Alvin looked stricken. I hated to do this to him, but he hadn't given me much choice. This was the only way I could think of to move his stubborn heart.
Understood, milady.
His voice was strained, but he executed a graceful bow and took the parchment my father held out to him. He left the room with slow dignity, but I knew it would take him some time to recover from this blow. It was a pity I would likely never see him again.
That was well done, my dear. I see you have indeed learned the important lessons of noblesse oblige.
Of course I have. You know I hold it as dear as you do. I've done everything I can to care for the people of Glastonbury in your absence. I'd wish he'd given me more credit for that instead of focusing on my mistakes.
You have indeed. I'm very proud of you, truly. And just imagine you are to be Lady Nottingham.
His attitude toward me had softened quite swiftly once I'd done what he wanted. Is this what the noble lords of nearby holdings had wanted from me? Is this what Lord Joffrey would expect, a decorative lady who spoke and acted according to his wishes? After 7 years as the most powerful person in Glastonbury, even with my struggles and problems, I couldn't say I relished the idea in the slightest. That night, I sat in my chamber, gazing out the window at the bright moon over Glastonbury's gentle landscape. The soft chirping of crickets below soothed my frazzled nerves. I had promised my father I'd marry Lord Joffrey in order to save the future of my dear friend and former lover. But once Alvin was safely home in London, did I need to keep that promise? The fuck I did not! The words of Shala's sage drifted into my thoughts.
You may face your destiny directly. For you, that is to marry the man your father has chosen, yes? And yet the path may bring you something unexpected and new. Or you may decide to fight your fate, to make new choices and create new possibilities. And yet, even then, you may find yourself back where you began.
I'd been too emotional and scattered these last few days. It was time to do what I did best, organize my thoughts, and make a calm, rational decision. The simplest, safest path would certainly be to marry Lord Joffrey as I had promised. Was the sage right? Was facing destiny, the destiny that had been decided for me, an act of courage? And the future was unknown after all. I was no Neberian fortune teller. Perhaps Lord Joffrey would be to my liking, even if I currently imagined him as a younger version of my father. Perhaps taking the path that could indeed lead me to something exciting and new, even if I couldn't imagine how. Despite my promise to my father, the option for me to flee remained. I had all the skills needed to run a hold or even an entire holding. I simply had to find a way to escape from being Lady Marion of Glastonbury. Actually, I would drop a save soon.
By the way, you guys are at time.
Yeah, I think. Do we want to end it here? Actually, I feel like we're
almost. I think we're almost at the.
Yeah, I can. I have my Otome sense is tingling. Up until now, I'd always imagined that I would become the Lady of a Hold and take pleasure in fulfilling my noble responsibilities. But was that truly what I wished to do? I thought about the fact that I was more interested and skilled in the tasks of a lord rather than those of a lady. What was I to do with that? I was a noble woman and my responsibilities were, as such, were important to me. Was there a way for me to reconcile my interests and talents with my identity? Would I need to take the path of shadowy rebellion in order to earn my right to walk in the light? Drop a save here. Because I feel like this decides what route we're going to take. I feel like we should end it here for tonight.
Okay.
Also, because I don't know which route, I'm feeling like the top one leads us to the Nottingham route.
Yeah.
The bottom one leads us to the Nottingham route, and the top one leads us to the fucking Sherwood route.
You think so?
Well, because we already did the one where we did the Nottingham route, and we wrote a note, and we fucking rappelled out a fucking window. And I feel like that would be the bottom one. Okay, but we're ending it here for tonight. Despite technical problems, we had fun.
Yes, and our vocal cords are sore,
Yes.
and it has been snowing, so I need to see what
Yes.
that looks like.
I think it stopped snowing.
Hopefully it stayed that way. So, that has been us. If you found an interest in this game, it is available right now for download and early access on Steam and itchy.io. I guess I would suggest the Steam version is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
But I haven't used itch.io.
You can use either. I've used both.
Okay. Thank you for hanging out with us, Chibi Witch Kitty. Thank you for hanging out, Willow. You guys are wonderful. We love you.
Been lovely hanging out with you. Lovely talking at you.
Don't forget to thank anyone who was lurking.
Thank you, lurkers.
We love the lurkers. We love them. I'm glad you had fun, as our silly asses.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. This is the part where we go away now.
Ashlee, what's your name?
I'm Ashlee A. Button.
I'm Mega-han.
Adam is over there in the back.
And next, I believe our next show will be the 17th. Probably, maybe. And
That is correct. The 17th, the Tuesday after next, is going to be our next episode of Otome
which
O'Clock.
means the Date with Death new DLC should be out by then.
Are we going to do Date with Death, or are we going to do Made Marion continuation?
What do you... Well, figure out... actually, let's figure out now. What do you want to do?
I guess it could be time sensitive, because Marion's going to take a while, so obviously it's going to be multiple parts. How long is Date with Death?
I don't... The new DLC adds 5 more days.
And that's on top of our playthrough?
Yes, but we finished our playthrough. So we might have to start again from the beginning.
Alright, we should probably speed run to the new 5 days.
Okay.
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 Okay. Bye.
That was a very unceremonious bye. Yeah, we're... oh, bye. Bye.
Bye.